Hmm. Well, if that's not a sign that we need to get rid of the couch, I don't know what is. Because even if Mom bought a obnoxiously big recliner, we could put that bitch in the corner of the room somewhere. And we need to get rid of the coat tree too. Everything needs to go in the closet.
There's not room.
I don't want to hear it.
I have to get a lot of shit out of that closet.
You can hang shit up. There's hardly anything hanging in there. It's all shit that's on the floor.
Yeah. Coats hang longer than what's on the floor.
Do they hang low? Do they wall to the floor?
You can tie them in a knot.
Can you tie them in a bow?
You can throw them over your shoulder.
I forget the rest of it. And again, not mad at the dog. I'm mad at the person that's supposed to be supervising the dog. That is the stupidest hat I've ever seen. Look at this stupid troll. Look at this stupid face. Alright, y'all ready for some Ravasaur grinding? Huh? I have a whole level of Rested XP. We're doing it. We're fucking doing it. Somebody seriously doing a... Hold on here. Hold on. Diablo 2 Resurrected versus Original.
Hey, it's Anthony from the Beta Network here. Like talking about the Matrix or Kid A, there's only so much you can say about a bona fide classic. Torchlight. Some cracks can...
If I remember right, the remake on Diablo 2 is actually good.
...be found under the shiny new veneer. Resurrected remains as challenging and as frantic as ever. Make no mistake, this is Diablo 2 with a new coat of paint in the truest of terms. With the push of a button, you could switch between the new 4K remade graphics and the original to really get a sense of how far the franchise has grown. It's a lot less cinematic than Diablo 3, but the environments and characters here are rendered in superb detail, with enemy demons looking particularly crisp and unchanged from the...
You know, one reason I like Diablo more than... Or not... Why I like WoW more than Diablo is that Diablo was a lot of, like, you just spammed one spell over and over again, basically. World of Warcraft, you spam 2 spells. It's more gameplay depth. Um...
Hello? Yes? Yes? Good. How are you?
Imagine there is a certain item in World of Warcraft that's quite... Imagine there is a certain item in World of Warcraft that quite literally everyone wants, but only players with a certain profession are able to gather, and even then it's impossibly rare. An item which is used in consumables that are disproportionately powerful and required if you really want to push performance in raiding. Well, back in Classic WoW there was such an item, and it was called the Black Lotus. Black Lotus were part of a number of important profession items too, such as the Flashy Mojo Madness. You needed this to spawn the extra boss in Zul'Gurub for the class trinkets, or the stealth enchant on cloaks, so rogues could be that little extra bit annoying, but their main use were for flasks. Speaking of flasks and consumables though, I want to do a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Factor 75. January is the most popular time to set health and fitness goals, and Factor 75 can help you achieve these by supplying healthy, dietitian-approved meals which are calorie counted. A real bonus is that because you can order ahead of time, you'll always have hassle-free food which is ready in 2 minutes or less. No expensive takeouts, no fuss, no cleanup. Keep focused on the things which are important to you. All you do is heat, eat, and recycle. And Factor 75 being delivered directly to your doorstep with their special packaging means you don't even need to be at home to receive them. Factor allowing for extra crafts. None of this was the case in vanilla.
Give me one
Flasking
second.
in vanilla was a commitment.
Give me one
and
second.
It kind of had to be because these flasks were A, really hard to make, and B, really overpowered. Take Flask of Supreme Power for an example, as it was in vanilla, a 2-hour buff that gives 150 spell power. Now in TBC, Blizzard realized, these vanilla flasks are kind of
He wants
really
me
good.
to come in and
So they
do the
nerfed
order.
Supreme Power down from
He is
150 spell
currently
power to 70
in
with the new
Chicago.
flasks in TBC, such as Flask of Pure Death
And
with 80 spell power. And then Wrath
Keith
came around.
What, tomorrow?
Frostworm gives
Today.
125
Yes,
spell
Keith
power.
is,
So if we're
Keith
comparing
needs the order
unchanged
in
version of each flask between
today,
each expansion, the vanilla
before
flask
6
that we were
p.m.
using at level 60 is 25
Okay,
more
what's
powerful
his?
than the one that we're currently using at level 80.
What is he
A flask
saying he's gonna do in return?
contributes about 30% or more of your total spell
$50
damage. And of
bucks.
course they lasted through death as well. No other consumable did this. It's a pretty
No.
simple story for all the other flasks and all
More?
the other roles as well in vanilla. So yeah, what I'm saying is these things are pretty overpowered.
I mean,
On top
I
of
don't
that,
really
you
need
have
to do
go a
anything
special
except for
crafting
laundry.
table too in order
And
to
dinner.
actually make them.
Dinner?
Well, you gotta reheat it.
In
Yeah.
TBC where you had an alchemy table in Shattered,
You got a ride? I'm not taking you.
or Wrath where you
can
just
ask
make them
Pauline.
anywhere. In Phase
You're
1,
gonna pay her?
only
So it's
players
$40.
to make flasks
It's stupid.
not something a solo player
Obviously, you've never negotiated a bargain before in your
I
life.
can ask for more,
just after Brutal or Lash
or have Chris come get me. Be no charge to me.
See, I'm about to die now because you just frustrated me.
Hey.
But the biggest hurdle was
Fucking women, all
I
you do
wasn't
is.
really asking if I should do it. I was asking if you, if you're gonna be mad if I do it. I'm obviously gonna ask for more money.
That's the one that gave bonus health. We did 30 Grom's blood. These are gathered from high
Yay,
level
nay.
zones or dungeons. 10
You
stones.
mad or no?
These were from fishing, and 1
I'm just trying to survive.
In fact, every flask needed a black. So how do we get to them?
What time are you gonna be back? It's going on the 3:30.
Herbalism. Only herbalists with a max skill could even pick these in the first place.
Okay.
And it's classic, of course, that gathering attempts can fail.
No.
You could actually have clicked a Black Lotus herb, failed
Had you
the
give-
attempt, and then somebody else comes along at the right
Had he
time.
given you 24 hours notice or something like that, then maybe we could talk, but
What a
it's way too
classic
late.
Rage-inducing moments, that's for sure. Though, if I remember right, Tauren's plus
You still
15
there?
racial bonus to herbalism puts them over the failure threshold, so Tauren's OP, I guess. Black Lotus could be found in 4 high-level zones, those being Winterspring, Silithus, the Burning Steppes, and the Eastern Plaguelands. Also back in Vanilla, they were their own gathering nodes. Lotus were not rare finds from other herbs as Fel Lotus
What?
was in TBC or Frost Lotus in
They
Wrath.
said
And
he'd
when I
give
say
you
they
a
were
free
rare,
six-pack
I mean it. Unless you
and
were properly
$50.
settled in for a several-hour-long herbalism
So what?
session.
We each get $50?
Frost one in the wild was incredibly low. The one time
No.
I saw a Black
No.
Lotus
It's not even about the money at this point. It's 3:30.
to molten core, and of course somebody instantly grabbed it. The reason why they're so rare is because because only one could spawn at a time in those 4 aforementioned zones.
Okay, so
24 or so spawn points in each of the
I
zones.
actually
On
am
top of that,
not
they
going to
had
be
around
able to
1
have enough
hour
time to do it.
respawn time each. Now, in original vanilla, sure, Black Lotus were hard to get, but the concept of full consumes for raiding was just nowhere near as commonplace as it was when we did Classic. Whether it was lack of knowledge of what consumables stack, things working different,
Alright,
have progressive patches, or just the cost of flasking up, it was less of a thing. The top-end server capacity was
If I was a carrier and I was going at 8 tomorrow instead of 3, I'd be like, go do whatever, I don't care. But no, it's way too late.
Our realm population estimates of low, medium, high, and full are based on this increased capacity. A medium realm today already has more characters on it than even the most crowded realms did.
Basically, it's like this. If I'm not willing to go to the store to shop for stuff we need, then neither one of us should be doing a fucking anything else. It's like the highest of priorities. And I don't care if he offered you 500, and I'd be like, eh.
If he offered me 500.
If he offered you, okay, I'd probably be like, all right, whatever.
You wouldn't have a say at that point.
Whatever. I'll heat my shit up and go to bed. Whatever. Go to bed without you again. That's fine. I thought you did the order on Mondays anyway.
Yes, but Keith asked him to have the order in by 6 o'clock tonight, and he's in Chicago.
Who's Keith?
The owner of Midwest Wholesale.
Fuck Keith. He doesn't dictate anything.
He doesn't have anybody to input any of the orders.
Well, he needs to
6 o'clock tonight.
find somebody. Get his wife on the phone. Here you got me fighting one dinosaur at a time, Laura. This is very inefficient. You frustrated me beyond comprehension. Now I can't even think. I can't even grind. You know how little thought power I have a stroke. Yeah. It's only a few buttons. Fuck. Anyway. Fucking Hindus. I'm probably gonna die here. Typical. Spam. Spam it. Spam it. Big potion, big potion, big potion. Mana shield. Spam it. Spam it. Spam it. Major my ass. Who's in my guild now? I got 5 members. 6 if you include my penis. Just trying to grind, man. That's what I want to do. I went out and I bought so many potions on you. I can't believe I never thought of this before. You literally...
Hello? Yes? Hello.
back in 2006. And it's estimated vanilla servers capped out around 4,000 to 5,000 players, whereas in Classic, the big servers were easily over 10k. That's a whole lot more people in one
Well,
place.
thank you.
And on top of this,
Yeah,
the
no,
fact
he
that
has to be
nowadays
up at 2
people
in the
min-max
morning,
the
so.
big game a lot more. They want to play the top DPS with the best gear and turn up for raids with the correct enchant
Yep.
speed. And of course, consumables, including flasks. Sure, the content was
Thank you for
easy
giving
back
us a
then,
call.
which is why people turned to competing for speed clears or for passing, and you didn't want to be the
Yep,
one
you
guy
too,
who
feel
didn't
better.
turn up with flasks when everybody else did.
Okay.
That just wasn't a good look for you. But what happens when we put easily 3 to 4 times the player capacity onto
Any
the
more
build
phone calls
alongside
anymore?
a player base that is
What was that?
more predisposed
Pastor.
to min-max?
Oh, what do you want?
He was calling everybody to let them know that they're doing the evening service over the phone because he's just not.
High levels.
He doesn't have the energy to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Per hour. That's 96 lotus per day per
Yeah, he,
even enough for 3, 4,
I think part of the reason his sermon felt like it was all over the place was because he couldn't maintain a chain of thought. Just
Chain of thought?
chain of thought. Was chains too heavy? String of thought? You made me cancel my vocation, Laura.
I did not make you do anything. Don't blame me for your stupidity.
What do you mean he's not in front of me?
As well as those looking to profit in the real world. And if Black Lotus were one thing,
Not even listening to this monotone Kusi wipe.
See what?
Kusi wipe. Alright, I'm gonna try listening to him here.
back then, gold was
You know, I didn't have
a
it loud
lot
enough, that's
more.
why.
These were fresh servers.
That's
after
why.
all. There weren't daily quests, raw gold farms weren't as good, and only one class, the Mage, could really access the best farming methods. I'd say that 1 gold back then in Classic is worth at least 10 now in Wrath. And I've got plenty of clips on the channel from back in the day between phases 1 and 2, a Black Lotus going for
We can do 2. 2's fine. I really hate getting days when I'm doing this. You have no idea.
Or even more. Of course,
They get like 2 free hits on me.
Here on where you played. I was on Gehennis at the time, which was a giga sweaty server, and therefore a
sweaty?
expensive server. Other places had literally half the price, as you can see.
Come on.
Imagine with 10 times inflation, if
Come
your
on.
class for next 25
Come on.
will cost you over 2,000 gold each. That's a pretty real way to think about how much these things were back then. And that's just for your flask, by the way. Nearly every consumable stack, because, you know, it's vanilla, remember? You could legit have about 24 different consumes for different occasions. Suffice to say, if you wanted to flask, you had to get out there and grind gold hard, or go farm them
Grind
yourself.
hard.
Neither option was without its own challenges. Early in Classic, for example, as a Warlock, I went and farmed Eye of Shadow in Dark Whisper Gorge. It was a 1 in 100 drop chance and needed for priests to craft their benediction. You could get a few hundred gold for each of these drops. Later, after Diamol came out, I did Diamol East jump runs, mining the rich thorium veins at the end. They had a chance to drop an arcane crystal, which went for somewhere around 60 to 100 gold. Again, each server varied a lot here. But as a Warlock, I had good options for farming. Other classes, as in everyone apart from Mage, to be honest, did not have things this good. Now, you could always duo farm with somebody else, that was always a solid option, but then you need somebody else to be on, you have to split the gold, it can be inconvenient and so on and so forth, and people wanted to keep up, people wanted to flask, but actually going out there and farming in the open world was incredibly competitive for reasons we've already gone over, and as time went on, many people got tired with farming and looked to other sources to source their consumables. Early on in Classic, the black market for Black Lotus was booming. These are screenshots from April 2020, where one of these virtual herbs would set you back some
Military pilots and ground crews showing high rates of cancer, Pentagon study reveals. I'm actually kind of curious as to what would be causing that. There's a lot of things that could be causing it, but I'm wondering if there's like any specific thing.
$10, meaning a stack of Black Lotus had a pretty realistic real-world value of $200. The supply could barely match the demand, and do these prices ever show it? It's mad to me that people were willing to fork out this level of money for these items, but hey, you know what they say, time is money, friend. The relaunch of World of Warcraft had proven an extremely lucrative opportunity for gold farmers and botters, and they were fully dedicated to cornering off this market and driving prices as high as possible. If you controlled the majority of the daily 96 Lotus spawns on your realm, you could even hold stock back and create further demand for this item, and that is exactly what happened. How'd they do it? Well, there were a number of ways.
I got 4
First of all
attacking
was
me now.
establishing all these spawn locations. Thanks to the likes of add-ons, wowheads, other server data, this was pretty fast to do. But then you have the problem of knowing where has the Lotus spawned. How can you know this without running laps of the zone and wasting a load of time? Pretty simple, actually. The farmers would watch all of the Lotus spawns
Wonder if I
at
should
the
get a
same
grind buddy.
time. Every single one. They would have level 1 characters come over to the spawns via summoning and have them die there. Then you have a ghost character watching the spawn all the time. If it spawns at that location, the herber for the zone comes along to pick it, and then you begin a timer with a pretty good idea of when to log in and next check that zone. A lot of herb mafias would come about because of this too, and on PvP servers, farmers would nearly always be able to outnumber a single player at any time of the day. I know some guilds that did this too as a bit of fun way to encourage some more PvP, and it was just a good gold farm as well. But for the average player who got on in the evening and had a couple hours to play, you were gonna seriously struggle to farm in the open world, let alone actually being able to see a single Black Lotus. It wasn't until May 2020 that Blizzard finally took action, and back then, them actually changing things was a pretty serious step. The whole no changes idea was still very strong, so for Blizzard to actively be rebalancing something in game was a big deal. This change, however, was pretty much unanimously seen as something that would overwhelmingly benefit the majority of players. They say, since the launch of WoW Classic, the game has used the spawn times and locations from original World of Warcraft, but populations and social factors have led to Black Lotus being much more scarce than it was in original WoW. We're going to increase the spawn rate of Black Lotus, and we're going to add many additional spawn locations in each of the Black Lotus zones.
I got it.
With a different
Clutch
hotfix,
crit
we're
off.
working on making it so a player cannot see a Black Lotus on screen or on their minimap if they're dead, unless they have 300 herbalism. This one fell swoop of a change hit all the points that it needed to. Gold farmers couldn't camp level 1.
That's actually a really good change. And I don't like changing anything from vanilla, but that's actually really good. That's really good. That's like pristine.
Corpses on spawn points anymore, and the availability of Black Lotus went up around 4 times or so. Player estimates following the update reckon that Lotus spawn timers went as low as 15 minutes, down from 1 hour, and there was now multiple different spawn timers per zone and a load more spawn locations. Though gold farmers still went after Lotus, there were just so many more now, casual players had a realistic chance to get them, and the prices on the auction house started to come down. I have some footage showing the massive rise in quantity on the auction house alongside a huge price drop just after this change was made across both EU and NA. There was definitely a knee-jerk reaction to this change, mainly because people were drip selling Lotus on the auction house and wanted to offload in case they crashed, but prices settled to more reasonable amounts, though flasks were still around the 80 to 100 gold mark. It was a lot more attainable than they were going to be if they kept going up. In the Burning Crusade and Wrath, of course, the Lotus of the expansion are just rare drops from high-level herbs, and even in Season of Mastery, Blizzard made this change so Black Lotus would drop from high-level herbs too. Maybe that was just the sensible solution the whole time, but that's the story of the Black Lotus in Classic, and I don't think there's been something quite like it since. Maybe Dark Moon card greatness, that's kind of expensive to get early on in Wrath, but it's a one-time thing. You certainly aren't out there grinding gold weekly just to be able to raid anymore, that's for sure. It's one of the many things that made Classic an experience which is apart from other versions of World of Warcraft, and a special one at that. Anyways, let me know your Lotus experience from Classic, whether you are out there grinding or just trying to piece together your gold for this week's raid. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon. And all the ways that One thing that made vanilla World of Warcraft stand out across all versions of the game ever is how the world was built and the content was designed. It wasn't this meticulous, thoroughly tested and balanced world. It was much more akin to a bunch of developers having the chance to do something with a cool, brand new world with limitless opportunities. And when you take that world and bring it back over a decade later, it's amazing to see all the ways players have discovered to truly unearth every possible secret and all the ways they've optimized their characters. Take world buffs in classic WoW for example. Kevin Jordan, one of the 3 original vanilla developers and class designer for vanilla, was once asked about them on stream, to which he replied simply with, "There was no oversight for it. It was just a bunch of dudes making content that was cool, and a bunch of people working independently putting in stuff like that because it was a cool way to reward you for a quest or an activity." And that's really part of the essence of vanilla, which made it something memorable, because there was a lot of cool things that some dude had put in the game. In fact, there were loads of them. So what happens when you have an entire world of random cool things then? Well, that is the subject for today's video. So be it a quest reward, a player discovery or other, these are some of the weirdest ways players have discovered to optimize their characters in vanilla. So early on in the Barrens, Horde players will come across Camp Taraho. Seems like your fairly standard
I did
little
this out of order.
outpost and quest hub, but there's an NPC here that can actually provide some useful buffs even for maximum level characters. Just inside the cage near the flight path is the Quillbore Mangletooth. Players can complete a quest for him, after which they'll have the chance to hand in blood shards, which are farmed from Quillbores out in the Barrens. You can do this in exchange for several different buffs. Now, most of these buffs are pretty small, 10 extra strength, agility or intellect, and they're not half bad for the level you can get them at. But for some reason, 2 of these buffs are not just flat stats, they are percentages instead. These are the Spirit of the Wind for 10 blood shards. This provides a 30% increase to movement speed, which is undispellable.
I'm dead.
However, it does only last for 5 minutes, so uses are very niche, if any at all. More interestingly is Razor Hide for only 4 blood shards. Now, the tooltip here is your vanilla classic. It does something, but we're not going to tell you what it does. However, if you test it in game or check online, the damage reflect is only a really small value, not worth mentioning. However, the bonus armor is 25% and the buff lasts for 10 minutes. Now, 25% extra armor, I don't think I have to say, but it's a lot when we're talking about a geared warrior or a feral druid tank. In fact, even during Naxxramas progression, Horde guilds could take advantage of this short-term buff on the tanks during bosses which hit your tanks particularly hard, such as Patchwork for instance, making this a level 14 quest reward usable on some of the hardest raiding content in the game. How about we cover some more probably unintended buff uses in raiding? Another one that was pretty widely used was the fire resist buff available in Lower Blackrock Spire. So you're going to know that Blackrock Mountain houses Molten Core and plenty of other dungeons, meaning they're all fairly close together. And the last boss in Molten Core is of course Ragnaros. Now what Rag does is a ton of fire damage, and a lot of it is unavoidable fire damage, between Lava Splash for some random AoE and Wrath of Ragnaros, which has a nasty knockback on it which can then even chain knock you into lava. It's a good idea to bring some fire resist to add a little bit of leeway where your gear may be lacking on those first few kills. Also definitely worth a mention, resistant stats in vanilla were very important on a number of bosses. The higher your resist stat went against a certain element, the higher percentage chance you had to reduce damage taken by a certain percentage, which all averaged out, and it scaled with how much resist gear you wore. But what if you could get a bunch of resistances for free, allowing you to keep on more combat effective gear? Well, you could. Inside of Lower Blackrock Spire were Scar Shield Spellbinders. Players found that you could mind control these mobs and then use their fire resist buff on others, adding a huge plus 81 fire resist buff to raid members, which would last for an entire hour. Adding on a fire resist totem or aura for an extra 60 would leave you around 141, which without any other resist going on would reduce damage taken on average by around 33%, which isn't half bad. Oh, and in case you're wondering how long it took to buff if you needed your entire raid to go into a dungeon, well, in Classic you could take 10 people into most dungeons. You could 10-man the Dead Mines if you really wanted to. Who knows, just Classic things. There were also some mobs in Eastern Plaguelands which did something quite similar called Scarlet Medics. However, their buff was for 1 hour of extra arcane resist, and a boss we needed tons of arcane resist just never cropped up in Classic. We had Rag that needed fire, Viscidus needed nature, Saffron needed frost, and so on. And if you ever did need this arcane resist buff, it would have been super easy to get, as these Scarlet Medics are just standing around in the open world. There was also a buff from Black Fathom's Deep, strangely enough. Now, I don't think many active raiders went out of their way to get this since, well, Black Fathom's Deep is really in the middle of nowhere, and this buff is right at the end of the dungeon. But you can click an orb called the Altar of the Deeps after the last boss and gain a small 1 hour buff that gives you some extra intellect, spirit, and 15 extra frost spell damage. Mages were actually playing Frost early on during Classic in Molten Core and Blackwing Lair because they're both full of bosses which were immune to fire, and 15 extra damage at that early stage of the game is not as bad as it sounds. Also, at the end of Black Fathom's Deep, there was this random NPC that would teleport Alliance players to Darnassus, and for Horde, it's Hearthstone Hall Walk. The final random buff I want to go over here came on quite late in the game when AQ40 was released. As part of a new world PvP event, random dusty red looking nobs would spawn out in Silithus. Players could click on these and carry them back to their nearby faction camp. When you were carrying them, you couldn't mount or gain any movement speed increases. I guess the overall idea here was for you to go and hunt down enemy faction players trying to turn in and steal them for yourselves. Anyways, once you successfully hand in, you'll get a buff called Traces of Silithus. This short 30-minute buff would provide a further 5% damage to melee and spell damage.
I'm gonna go grind somewhere else.
According to the tooltip, no buff.
I think I'm gonna get some bots together and grind in Fellwood.
Ranged back then. Unfortunate. Oh, also fun fact, this buff was eventually banned on Warcraft logs for Classic due to the fact you'd have to get this buff last after all the others because it only lasts 30 minutes, whilst in a zone where you were auto-flagged for PvP on PvP servers and you couldn't mount. The griefers would have been out in full force to catch people out with world buffs there. So I think overall the idea was to save themselves a bit of sanity. Moving on though, quest rewards. This was peak random dudes doing some cool stuff design. Many of these items are just insanely overpowered despite being able to be farmed at a lower level. Many of these were even tradable for a time, though none of them were during Classic due to us playing on the final patch. Biggest of all is so many of them were faction specific. I have 2 interesting ones for the Horde and 2 for the Alliance. Horde first. We need to start off with a level 6 quest. A lot of these really weird items come from very low level content actually. This was available near the undead starting area in the town of Brill. The quest A New Plague had you go out and simply farm some fins from nearby murlocs. Upon handing in, you were given 5 slumber sand, which could be used to instantly put a target to sleep for up to 20 seconds. And of course this is Classic, so we don't have silly things.
I think I've had that before. I might have sold it.
It worked on any player of any level, and of course getting a 20-second escape that's instant cast on a 1-minute cooldown, that's not half bad. But this was just a one-time quest for the Horde only. Or was it? Well, no, actually, anyone could go and farm these items. Dust Devils out in Westfall were fairly rare mobs that roamed around the zone, and they have a low chance to drop magic dust, which does the exact same thing. So if you really wanted some of this stuff for example, opening the chest in the middle of the Gurubashi arena, you very much could go and farm it. The other Horde quest reward I have in mind was from a level 5 quest called A Solvent Spirit from Senjin Village, just outside the Valley of Trials. This had you go and collect some items from nearby crawlers and Makura. The quest reward was 10 times really sticky glue, which instantly routed a target for 10 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. Just like the sand, pretty handy tool to have in your bag when you need to make a heroic play in a battleground or just outplay during a gang. But the items the Alliance got were arguably even better. Starting off in Goldshire, we have the quest.
Wasn't there a quest giver in here?
For this, you need to surprisingly go and collect some gold dust from a nearby kobold mine, and this quest is available at level 4, mind you. The reward was a bag of marbles with 10 charges, of course it being on a 1-minute cooldown like everything else, and its effect was to reduce the target's chance to hit by 25%. These were tradable right up to the final patch of World of Warcraft, and I'm pretty sure they were made bind on pickup because of Naxx Rammus progression. And even in Classic, some players save these for Naxx, and that's because this 25% hit chance reduction effect, for some reason, worked on raid bosses. Old Wowhead had comments pointing out how good this would be on Mexner, for example. Imagine Web Spray having a 1 in 4 chance to miss you, or what about Patchwork Progression? Cutting his hit chance down by that much is like giving your tank a huge mitigation boost. It was a truly unique and niche item, though it's pretty clear to see why it was eventually made bind on pickup. The final item is arguably the most single powerful one-use quest reward consumable which has ever been put in the game, and for once this isn't a super low-level quest, nor was this item ever tradable as far as I could tell. This was a reward from the level 25 quest Mage Summoner, and it gave the Light of a Loon, which is more or less a paladin bubble in a bottle. Any class in the game could go completely immune to all spells and effects for 10 seconds. To this day, some people still have this sitting in their bank, waiting for that time when they need to be the one person alive at the end of a raid encounter or to survive some impossible battle. Be careful when you use it though, this item only has 1 charge. Let's move on to some weird raid optimizations. So you'll probably remember back in Classic, Shaman was Horde only, Paladin was Alliance only, and that created some big differences in the raiding and PvP scenes. Horde had the terror of the Elemental Shaman globaling you in a battleground, as well as a nice easy ride on Viscidus thanks to Poison Cleansing Totem, whilst Alliance had tons of passive support tools from the Paladin, as well as a healer that once had late game gear quite literally could not go even if they tried. So Holy Paladins had this talent called Illumination, which made it so when their spells crit, they gain 100% of the base mana cost. Or in other words, the spell was free. This effect was so powerful, it got nerfed to 60% effectiveness in TBC and down to 30% in Wrath. So you can already tell how busted it would have got late game. But whilst Alliance raids were able to go non-stop thanks to a never-ending supply of healing, Horde were not. Their counterpart Restoration Shamans didn't even have Water Shield back then. Due to this, Horde speedrunning guilds had to start getting pretty creative when it came to finding ways to keep themselves moving forwards in a race. And it was during the opening night of Naxxramas 14 Classic where one such Horde guild on North America, Onslaught, showed exactly
I'm just gonna start killing everything I run by. It's the best thing I can do right now.
It's always been a talking point in Classic, and during this raid, Onslaught went through, for example, 231 Greater Shadow Protection Potions, 170 Greater Frost Protection Potions, and 46 Flasks of the Titans. But most surprisingly was the fact the healer team overall used 133 Flasks of Distilled Wisdom. Now back in Classic, unlike Wrath of the Lich King, flasks were not cheap. Each needed around 40 herbs total, as well as a Black Lotus. These were rare spawns in high-level zones, so popping a flask really felt like a commitment. That being so, how did they go through 133 in one night if it's a 40-man raid? Well, you see, back in Classic, Distilled Wisdom didn't just increase your intellect as it did in TBC and beyond, it increased your maximum mana by 2,000. As in, if you were on 0 mana and you pop one of these flasks, you're now at 2,000 mana. I think you can see where this is going by now. Players in these guilds were chain popping flasks which could have easily cost around 150 to 200 gold worth of materials as if they were mana potions, and you could spam flasks. They had no cooldown other than the global one, of course. And again, if you think 100 to 200 gold sounds expensive now, you probably want to count a good 8 to 10 times inflation between then in Nax 40 and now in Wrath of the Lich King Nax. Still, in the end, they got world first Horde Naxxramas 40 for putting in this extra effort. And that out of raid preparation was really what classic speedruns were all about. It's stuff like this why people remember vanilla, and with today's far more min-maxy oriented MMO crowd, so much more of it has been uncovered. It does turn out though that a few dudes throwing pretty cool ideas together create something which is very difficult to replicate. Any other things from vanilla which you think are worth a mention? I have been enjoying doing these retrospectives a lot so far, and I'm getting that feeling I just may have to do one about the opening of AQ40 because it was a truly different beast in Classic compared to vanilla. Whatever it is though, do drop it down below. And before I end, a quick thanks to everyone who made suggestions on the previous video. It was a ton of help for this one. But that is all for today. As always guys, thank you all so much. It's January 3rd, 2006. World of Warcraft's latest patch has just dropped, 1.9, the Gates of Ahn'Qiraj. You hear it comes with a whole new raid over in the desolate and forlorn zone of Silithus. So eagerly you set about it, gathering your buffs and consumables with 39 of your most elite guildies in tow to give those bugs a firm slapping, and to collect some perps, only to get there and find, well, you can't get in. It's locked. Ah, well, there has to be some kind of attunement then. We've had those before. Molten Core had one. You needed to go run through Blackrock Depths and touch a stone outside the instance. Blackwangler had one too, and that was pretty fast. You just loot the Quartermaster NPC outside for the letter, and then you can use the teleporter. This one should be pretty fast too, right? As it turns out, there was quite a bit more to this one. Little did players know at the time, but the task that Blizzard had set them to enter AQ 20 and 40 was without a doubt the largest collaborative server-wide event that's ever been introduced to World of Warcraft. And that remains true to this day. It would be the catalyst for so many server-defining moments, and for memories that would stick with people long after their subscription lapsed. This is a story of sweat, griefing, and drama. This is the opening of the gates Barn-Kirage in World of Warcraft. So then, this whole opening the gates stuff, what do we actually need to do here? Well, in essence, it's pretty simple. We need two things to happen. First of all is the war effort must be completed. This is a shopping list of items to end all shopping lists of items. It's a collection of materials that represent the raw cost of setting up Azeroth's combined forces to go up against the minions of an old god. After the war effort is completed, there's a grace period that lasts a couple of days where the materials are transported to the desert, after which the second thing that needs to happen comes in. And that is for a player to have assembled the Scepter of the Shifting Sands and to bang the Scarab Gong outside the creatively named Scarab Wall. This would unlock the gate for the first time in many years, unleashing ancient horrors upon Azeroth. This was called the 10-hour war, or probably more accurately, the 10-hour server stress test. This was true both in vanilla and classic. This was 10 hours of chaos as the defenders, or attackers maybe, of AQ flocked out the freshly opened gate upon the denizens of Azeroth. Being there in game for the opening was truly a sight to behold, and there's been nothing quite like it since, and though we can't fully go back to that moment, you can relive it. Thanks to today's sponsor, Displate. In 2013, three guys reimagined the poster into something more durable and lasting. Each product is a high-quality design printed on metal. It's actually neat. 60 to the war. Even popular Neat Quest had some amazing however was the set reputation with your faction capital. Anyone could contribute to this, however, from this whole opening the gates tactically. Many thanks to Displate for the sponsor today. Let's talk WoW. Simple enough so far, but what do you get from all this? Well, it was no small undertaking. Trust me, when we get into a bit more detail on what this whole opening the gates actually needs, you'll see what I mean. Anyways, rewards. Well, for the war effort, as you handed in materials, you got boxes that gave random greens and a bit of reputation with your faction capital. Anyone could contribute to this, however, from a level 10 handing in some Peace Bloom to a 60 doing a stack of thorium ore. This part was never really about the rewards. What was, however, was the Scepter of the Shifting Sands and banging the gong. This extremely lengthy and unique quest had some amazing epic item rewards, unique cooking recipes, special boss fights, and roleplay events. There was the eternal glory of being the guy on your server who opened the raid. Oh, and there's also this mount you get too, the Black Battle Tank. It's one of the mounts from inside AQ40, but it works outside, and it's black. Nice. The title wasn't available in vanilla. You weren't officially a Scarab Lord until the launch of TBC, when Blizzard added it in. So there's your little introduction to the event. That's what we need to get done, and that's what you get from it. Now for how it really all went down. Let's cover off the war effort first, or the shopping list. Each faction on every single server had a collection of items that had to be turned in before someone was eligible to bang the gong and start off the war.
Oh.
Even if you had assembled a scepter in 24 hours,
Tickle Rick, is that what you just called me?
had not been completed. This made it arguably even more of a priority, not only due to the volume of items needed, but also because there was a grace period between.
Ooh, I just got a scum-covered bag out of that.
Being eligible to sound the gong
Did you
over in
just say a
Silithus.
cum?
Some
A
servers
scum-covered
like Vanilla
bag.
and Classic simply
See?
didn't have the population to realistically be able to gather all of these.
Maybe I should do
items
that more
like months
often.
without being able to access the new raid. In time, Blizzard.
Ooh, I got
auto-complete
superior
feature
healing
that would
potions.
contribute
Those
to
are
total
almost as good
percentage
as
of
major
items
healing
needed every
potions.
single day, and eventually
Hey,
they
could
brought
you,
in the people the helping hand they needed
Refresh
and
you.
full on set the event to done.
There's
Also,
more.
there were several realms
There's
at the
more.
time.
No, I don't wanna get tipsy.
large, they were only very large on one faction. So if there were 10,000 active Horde players and 100 Alliance players, well, the Horde would go and have to do the war effort for the Alliance. This did happen on a number of realms, which people did through trading through the neutral auction houses and transferring characters
Thank you.
to those realms. Though I suspect a few less legitimate ways of securing gold were used too here. As for how many items you actually needed, I did a bit of maths on the numbers, and for example, the Alliance needed a total of 2,443,000 individual items, including 90,000 copper bars, 400,000 runecloth bandages, 110,000 medium leather, and 600,000 silk bandages. The Horde had to gather, quite literally, 1 million less items than the Alliance, clocking in at some 1,408,000 items needed in total. This was because Horde had a number of higher quality items that had to be gathered, so it evened out a bit. I'm only joking, of course. The real reason is that Blizzard loves the Horde and wanted it to be easier for them. What started to become noticeable with this event was that each server was a little bit different, and this is something which will very much carry forward when we get around to assembling the Scepter. In fact, each server would go on to have its own story to tell. At the time, I was on Gehennas in EU.
What am I drinking? I'm drinking White Russians, my usual. I worked too much last week and beer's not gonna cut it, so I'm dipping into my liquor. I'll probably go back to beer next week. I don't like being hungover. I don't have anything to deal with hangovers. I don't have any Red Bulls, orange juice, or bananas.
Which was without a doubt one of the most try-hard servers on the region. We had a lot of the big guilds who had played alternative servers in the past, shall we say, and were more than just prepared for the day to come when the war effort would begin. The Alliance finished the contribution in a matter of days. The Horde side contributed to the war effort by, well, not really doing anything. It wasn't like the Horde was a low population
Pretty good.
on the server at the time either.
I didn't work
They just
today,
didn't
so
turn
I'm
in
automatically
items.
great,
Why was that?
actually.
Well, it could have been a number of reasons.
Laura and I went
To
to
feel
church
as though
and we
they were
went
helping
to
the Alliance by completing the war effort.
some
Maybe it
antique
was the
shops
fact
because
that
we're
the
looking to
guilds on the
replace our
opposite
sectional
faction,
because
who
it's
they
just too
knew they
big
could hold back
for our
where they couldn't
apartment,
go
quite
for an
frankly.
open world PvP, or maybe it was just to buy some more time. And sometimes you did need extra time, because whilst the other faction might be done, your guild still might be working on your scepter or scepters. And it was like a game of chicken, because after the gong is rung, everyone with a scepter needs to go.
Should we just get 2 rocking chairs from Ship Shawana?
I am not going to be sitting in a rocking chair after work because my ass will not be getting out of said rocking chair.
Isn't that the idea, though? Be comfortable?
I will not get anything done ever. I'm going to come home, sit down, take my shoes off, and I won't move. Which means no laundry, no dinner, no bedtime.
Have a nice little blanket.
Wouldn't need a blanket. Not after working like that. Fucking working like a damn
Buying it
dog.
as well in order to be
How much were those? $300?
Approximately.
I can get 2 of those.
You'd be better off just getting me like a bar stool.
No.
I'm telling you right now, you get me a rocking chair, my ass is not getting out of it.
eligible to get the mount reward. If you miss this 10-hour timing window, well, that is unfortunate because now you have a scepter in your bank to look at with 0 opportunity to ever redeem it. And no, you couldn't just transfer to another server and ring their gong instead. Blizzard put a hefty 90-day restriction on any gong banging after you transferred. Which was
Gong banging.
foresight there. Imagine having someone come out of the blue,
Oops, wrong
ring your
button.
gong, AFK for 3 months, and then transfer back.
Where's Puppy?
This very much made it into a race and a test of trust between both factions. Remember, in the game, this was a collaborative server-wide event.
Yes, sir, but it's the best rocking chair that money can buy.
Hi, Babs.
The Reno's in the chat, woman.
Yes. I could see. I saw the yellow.
Made by the Amish. it actually has a bucket seat to it, so you're automatically your ass always goes to the back of the chair like it's supposed to, and it's elevated in the front, which ensures proper blood circulation. And the back of it is actually concave in a way. It has its own lumbar support, dude. I'm telling you, and it's completely wooden, no cushion whatsoever. But it's the most comfortable thing I've ever sat in. I'm telling you.
Is someone going to jump the gun and ring the gong early?
Just know
or
that
can
you
we
will
hold
not
off
be
until
getting me
everyone
up out
assigned to
Chair
get
goes
on
back and
is
forth,
done?
yeah.
This meant the easiest
Yeah,
way to ensure
rocking
no one
chair.
did bang it early was just to sit on
I don't
one.
mean like rocking chair is in the chair that you sit in the corner of the room with your stereo and listen to like
Shut up.
Metallica. That's a rocking chair, and I'm talking about like a rock back and forth, you know. Don't look at me like that. Ooh, there's Alliance. He sees me, I see him. We're staring each other down. Come here, bitch. Come here, bitch. Oh, oh, I'll fire ward. Yeah, kill me. Kill me. Yeah, kill me. You got stunned. You got stunned. You got stunned. You had to use a potion. Oh, he's gonna try shadow magic. Oh, he put a fire ward on. What is he, a priest? Oh, he's a priest. Why was I worried about getting... All I can do right now is heal. Oh, there's a smite. Okay. There's a smite.
You're almost out of mana, so it's...
Oh, I got plenty of mana, trust me. Now you're out. Oh, he used something gay.
Something gay.
Oh, I triggered his thing.
Did you wave? You're a dick.
While gaming, no. Though I probably could set
No.
something up.
No.
Oh, there's an elite dinosaur. I'm gonna fight him. I'm gonna fight him. Hold on. I gotta keep track of him. I don't know if I can do enough damage, but I'm gonna fight him. He went this way. There he is. Alright, this is ready. That's right. Oh, I did no damage. I'm doing no damage. And he's got a roar. Oh, and he's got a roar. Oh, fiddlesticks. Can I poly him? He is a beast, right? There we go. It's a big sheep. Must go faster. As they said in Jurassic Park movie. Who are you talking to, huh?
Hmm?
Who are you talking to?
I don't know.
I want Discord or chat?
Chat?
I was gonna say, don't talk in Discord. I'm streaming. What the fuck? That's like passing notes under the table and shit. Share with the rest of the class.
I'm just trying to get the fucking chat to actually pop up properly on here.
See, my commentary is really good when I've had sleep. When I haven't had sleep, it's not good. We do need to start playing that visual novel, though.
So is QB or Cube like a demigod in Palua? Or is he like an actual? I know he's like some
Cuba's name comes from the word incubator. Incubator comes from the Latin word something something something, which means to lie. Cuba is a creature who makes contracts with young girls to turn them into magical girls so that they can fight witches. In this process, the girl makes a wish and Cuba grants it, but in return, the girl's soul is put into a small gem, which is also a source of the magic. If destroyed, the magic will disappear and the girl will die. If it is corrupted with the darkness from grief, the gem will turn into a grief seed and the girl will turn into a witch. This is the ultimate fate of magical girls.
I just realized just how fucking dark that is.
Cuba does not possess any human emotion. As in the later episode, Cuba refers to magical girls' bodies as empty shells while explaining why Sayaka died when separated with her soul from her soul gem. Despite its emotionless attitude, it apparently likes hot baths and human food, as seen in episode 2. It is also able to bleed, though it can reproduce its body and eat the old one. The body reproduction ability can be used whenever Cube's body is too damaged to be used, or simply as at an inconvenient state.
Effort supplies for as long as you needed to, and a lot of people did that, which would of course in turn make people rather mad because they wanted to do the raid. So they would organize raids themselves.
I'm gonna make
to
Aiden
go
watch
raid people
Madoka with
from
us when he
the
comes over.
sector. They would grief their events or even use a spam report feature to trigger bans. It didn't exactly help people finish their scepter any faster. In fact, it did the complete opposite. But hey, I guess it got back at them for not playing the game in the way that other people wanted. How dare you not be handing in your peace bloom? Do it now. So that is the war effort, and in some ways, that was the easy bit. Now we need a scepter of the shifting sands. Picture this quest for a moment. It must be done to unlock the new raid. It's near impossible to solo and requires a lot of help or a lot of gold. Each server creates its own time gating for the quest, and it offers rewards only literally a handful of people would see. Everyone wanted to do it. 99.9% of people wouldn't even get past the first part of the quest. There's been many server-wide events in the past. The Isle of Quel'Danas progress depended on server-wide dailies done. Many pre-patch
That was a
events
small
Yeah.
summary.
Dragonflight brought people together.
Trust me.
None of
That
them
was
even
that
close
was
to the
that was
level
an excerpt from a wiki.
of insanity that the scepter
That
of the
was like a
shifting sands
mini
required.
version.
Back in original vanilla, the
Movie,
player
a game, or
Galahad
what?
from US realm Medivh was the first reported Scarab Lord and the first person to ring the gong. On Blizzard's official 1.9 patch trailer, players from that realm were also accredited with this achievement.
Was that
What's
an anime
truly
movie or a
remarkable
series?
is that given the efforts players had to
Was Madoka a series?
The first two movies, it was a series before, and then it became summarized in the first two movies.
I'm just gonna say an anime.
And then the third movie is actually a sequel.
go through, and considering the patch launch was on January 2nd,
Oh, you were
2000,
talking like
as
The
progress
Flash.
depended on server-wide dailies done. Many pre-patch events such as Legion
Talking
like The
Flash?
brought people together.
Talking way too fast.
Oh, my apologies. But in short, it's some space cat that seduces young girls into giving up their souls.
To become a witch.
Yeah, to become, well, not this, to become a witch, but to become a magical girl, but you're ultimately going to become a witch or die, one or the other.
Or both. become a witch and then die.
So you think we should make Aiden watch Madoka?
Yes.
It'd be a lot easier. He hasn't seen The Northman yet either, apparently.
What?
Yeah, he told us that when he came over. Remember, I couldn't believe it. I swore up and down that he watched it with us.
Oh, yeah. No, we just watched it again because we got it on DVD.
We watched it with Mom. Yeah.
I remember now.
Oh, I need to put my buffs back on, apparently.
And who gave me that name? I gave it to myself.
Yeah, because she's an emotionalist space cat. Except space cat's better listener. Looking for crystals. Hey, Mr. Bug, have you seen crystals? No, not crystal at Trailer Park Slut. I'm talking about crystals. It's the kind of thing it looks like you'd find on the sheets in a Hilton. 620. That's a fair amount of XP. I should be grinding bugs. Make coffee out of them, just like Maxwell House.
Oh,
That's what it tastes like.
well, they can keep their cricket powder.
Cricket powder coffee. You stupid bitch. $9.15, $7.37, $5.37. Just numbers. What do they mean, Mason? What do they mean? You know, I'm just gonna fight my way out of here. I need the XP anyway, and they gave good XP. They're a little tanky, though. I don't think I can fight more than one of them at a time. And then he just burns. So who do you think covers Genesis better, our pastor or Harold?
Harold.
Yeah. Nothing against our pastor.
Yeah.
That's a tall.
I was gonna say that's like almost an impossible comparison.
Fight me. Fight me. Fight me.
You could have any power, what would it be?
Hold on. I'm doing stuff.
Oh, well.
Oh! I didn't realize I didn't have any mana. I hit mana shield. Should just fucking used my potion. Such a doofus. I was wrecking him too. Any power? Time travel.
Why?
So I could stop the government and the bankers from killing Kennedy.
Well, that's the Lord's will.
You're right. I'd probably just go watch a war or something.
So you telling the truth.
Put some tanning glasses on and go to Nagasaki or Hiroshima.
Put on some goggles.
Or maybe get some marshmallows, some Hershey bars, and some graham crackers, and go to Tokyo during the fire bombings.
See, if your superpower was time travel, I too would have to have time travel to be with you.
I could go hide furniture in like the 1800s. I could hide it somewhere that nobody would ever find it. And then I could come back to the present. We could go get it. Oh, it's fucking brilliant. That's exactly what you use time travel for. It's something that doesn't disrupt anything. You just like steal shit and hide it somewhere and come back to it in 200 years. It's perfect.
Or come back to recent, like present day. Like every 20 years or so.
Go get a bunch of gold from the gold rush. Stash it somewhere. Nobody finds it. Come back to the present. Oh, I'm rich.
Well, you gotta be careful with that.
Why?
Because how does your time travel work? Do you just travel through time in the spot that you are? Or do you time travel to wherever you want to be?
That's a good point. Finger point. Bang pow. Yeah.
Or we could combine our powers. Like, say, if I hold your hand, you can jump through time or time travel, and we could have my ability, which would be teleportation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would hold your hand, and we would time travel to whenever you wanted to. And then we would use my abilities to teleport wherever we needed to go.
I have no mana left. I should probably stop dying over there. I should probably just get the crystals and get out.
Ever, but none of them were even close to the levels of insanity that the Scepter of the Shifting Sands required. Back in original vanilla, the player Galahad from US realm Medivh was the first reported Scarab Lord and the first person to ring the gong On Blizzard's official 1.9 patch trailer, players from that realm were also accredited with this achievement. What's truly remarkable is that given the efforts players had to go through, and considering the patch launch was on January 2nd, 2006, is that the first gong was rung some 20 days later, on January 22nd, on the previously mentioned realm of Eve. World 2nd was reported from US realm Manaroth on January 27th, and World 3rd from European realm.
You said he's from the Netherlands, woman.
30th. 20 days from zero knowledge of the event to completion, that would be pretty decent timing by today's standards, but nowhere near fast. Of course, today in Classic, players knew exactly what they needed down to the last Peace Bloom. They had summoning networks set up in advance to get their Scarab Lords around the world, and truces and cross-faction pacts were established in anticipation of the event. If you didn't already know you were a Scarab Lord 6 months before the event happened, you just weren't gonna be one. Where in Vanilla, a server may have seen 2 or maybe 3 Scarab Lords, in Classic, well, things were different. We had layering for a start. This meant that several different versions of Silithus coexisted alongside each other, which is vital for farming reputation, as we will soon see. Some servers' factions coexisted and farmed well alongside one another. US realm Fairbanks reported out of 55 people that signed up to go for Scarab Lord, 49 of them were successful. But the realm with the most Scarab Lords by far and away was the Russian server Flamegore, which reported an unreal 90 Scarab Lords completed in total. Not quite as rare of an achievement as it used to be. As for speed of completion, where in Vanilla it took 20 days, in Classic on the US realm Sulfuras, the entire war effort and scepter were completed in a staggering 14 hours. That's some 3.8 million items handed in between both factions, and the entire Scepter questline done within that space of time. Players would have had mailboxes with thousands of pages of items waiting for them in this remarkable feat of preparation. This was done primarily by members of the guild Grizzly, though this won't be the last we will hear of them during this event. Now, I'm not going to cover every single part of the Scepter quest because there's 32 in total, but in essence there's a reputation farm portion of the quest, and then you need to go and find 3 Scepter shards that are held by the green, red and blue dragonflies. First, we should do a rep farm. This is kind of the filter quest. It was like saying...
I've always wondered how that works. Like, if you're,
what you needed...
if your first language is one language, do you just think in that language and then speak in the other? I've always wondered about that. Oh, I already got all the blue ones. I'm actually almost done with this. There's a green. I don't need any more green. Or no, I do need green. I'm gonna fight this dinosaur. Maybe. Unless he flies away like a bitch. He's got that fucking, he's got that pouch under his neck. He looks like a school bus driver. Cloned ooze. What the fuck? You better give XP. Or I'm reporting you. And I'm the admin. Okay, good. Those are actually pretty nice things to fight when you're trying to grind. Get 2 for the price of 1, essentially.
To do was go from hated to neutral with the brood of Nosdormu, and there's actually a cool reason you start at hated too. Being a bronze dragon, Nosdormu saw the future and knew you only pre-ordered the base edition of Dragonflight instead of the epic one, and that made him rather mad. Anyways, hated to neutral is 42k rep, same as neutral to exalted actually, and there was one repeatable way to gain reputation, and that was to complete the quest, the Path of the Righteous. This had you hand in 200 Silithid carapace carapace fragments in exchange for 500 reputation. So we're talking 84 hand-ins total, which doesn't sound too bad, does it? Well, that's until you realize 84 hand-ins means you are required to farm 16,800 silithid carapace fragments. However, each completion of the quest meant you received an item which would allow allies to also collect these fragments, so the more people you can have working alongside you, the faster you can get one person to neutral, and you really could only work on one person at a time, as in there would be potentially dozens of people that would be farming bugs in small groups spread out across Silithus, then go and trade those fragments to the dedicated player who would then hand them in for the reputation. So I've mentioned these Silithid carapace fragments a few times now.
I think the right ones are probably close to the center.
3 hives located across Silithus. They're full of elite bugs. You go kill them, you go loot them, you get the fragments. The elites can drop up to 4. First team to 16,800 fragments gets to progress on the next part of the quest. Now this grind in of itself was pretty lengthy, but could be done in a day or two with enough dedication and help. But that wasn't necessarily what made it difficult. What made it hard was the fact that each person who wanted to create a scepter needed 16,800 fragments, and each person would have teams fighting
You tell 'em.
spawns. And in Classic, we have this a little thing called PvP servers. So if you wanted to put a group together and just gank endlessly, well, you could.
Customers are always wrong.
Preparation work that people had agreed on before the event.
That's the real rule right there.
In with the right crowd and who was going to be pushed out of being able to farm enough fragments. And unlike original vanilla, so much of the politics were not handled in game. The advent of Discord,
And they're always wrong because they don't fucking work there. It's not hard to comprehend.
faction to quickly and efficiently communicate between one another. Which guilds are allowed to farm? Which hive will they occupy? How long are they expected to be there? And which players and or guilds do we not like? Who do we?
And it's only annoying
make sure they can't.
When the customer, who's always wrong, thinks they're right. That's when it gets annoying.
Farm or disrupt other guilds. At this point, the notions of in-game factions were no longer important for the farm. There were those whose names were on the nicer list and those who were on the naughty list, and that was kind of it. Cross-faction collusion was more rampant during the Scarab Lord farm days than it ever has been since, and people were not happy about it. How can your own faction sit by and watch as your chain mind-controlled or polymorphed, which in Classic could last over 30 seconds, by the way, because good old Classic class balancing. It was unacceptable and against the spirit of the game, some would say. There was even an old terms of service page dug up where it said in blue, clear as day, that it was against the rules to communicate directly with players who are playing characters aligned with the opposite faction. And it wasn't an uncommon sight to see everyone just running past one another. The goal in mind was farming fragments, not PvPing. Though I will say the areas between the hives were like running across a minefield. The amount of players bloodthirsty for some world PvP action were massive, and any stragglers would be quickly dispatched. In the end, Blizzard, yeah, actually they just didn't do anything about it. Players colluded between factions and players met their goals, and all was harmonious on Azeroth, or as long as it had to be during the reputation farming, because that was only the beginning of the journey to obtain a scepter. The next part would see relations break down on many servers, as previously established truces had outlived their usefulness, and it only took a few people to bring a whole event to a standstill. On to the shards then. So the red and blue shards weren't actually too bad to get. The red was by far the easiest. You just do a run of Blackwing Lair in under 5 hours. That's literally it. Yeah, not exactly much of a tall order there. The blue had a huge quest line within the quest attached to it, where you had to use a magical fishing bait to attract a shark-like creature called the Wrath of Neptulon. This quest featured defeating open world bosses, invading opposite faction capital, and was the source of World of Warcraft's only epic cooking recipe, Dirge's Kickin' Chimmerock Chops. It also rewarded the Band of Icy Depths, which is the highest value vendor item in the game. Very cool. The problem in many cases was the green shard. There were several issues with this part of the quest.
Oh wait, there's other ones over by the
boss in the open world that needed a
right over here. Now that I remember.
Opposite faction could come and try to AoE you down.
That's where I have to go anyway.
Your
What?
own faction could also grief you too. An
No,
NPC required for
you
the
shot on my
quest, Keeper
chest.
Remulus was part of the Cenarian Circle, a faction which if you wanted, you could toggle as at war with, meaning at any point during the quest, he could get tagged and pulled out of the quest zone, causing it to reset, or when you were trying to hand a rewarded
Wait,
the
what?
Vend of Icy Depths, which is the highest value vendor item in the game. Very cool. The problem in many cases was the green shard. There were several issues with this part of the quest. Not only did it involve trying to defeat a boss in the open world that needed a raid to be done, meaning the opposite faction could come and try to AoE you down whilst you were in combat, your own faction could also grief you too. An NPC required for the quest, Keeper Remulus, was part of the Cenarian Circle, a faction which if you wanted, you could toggle as at war with, meaning at any point during the quest, he could get tagged and pulled out of the quest zone, causing it to reset, or when you were trying to hand the quest in, you could tag him and just run him around in circle for hours, and you had to get somebody from the opposite faction to come and stop this from happening. Things got so bad with griefing on this step of the quest, Blizzard eventually had to step in and make some changes to prevent certain underhand tactics that players were coming up with. But you could also grief for this quest at another point, and this would set the stage for arguably the best storyline from this event, and you couldn't have scripted something better than this. So, as another part of the Green Shard quest, you had to go defeat a Twilight Corruptor in Duskwood. This required a decent sized raid, and it was an open world boss, meaning it's extremely easy to grief attempts. On US server Sulfurous, relations had grown poor between factions and guilds that had colluded efforts to farm materials and to grind fragments in Silithus. Alliance Guild Grizzly, remember them, first to complete war effort in only 14 hours, had started to cause problems on the Green Shard part of the quest, holding down the world boss area in Duskwood and preventing any other guilds from being able to advance. Eventually, some reported 200 Horde players combined together and pushed them out of the zone, aiming to score a quick kill on the Twilight Corruptor and advance the quest.
There it
However,
is.
the moment the Horde moved in to pull, the player running for the Scarab Lord on
Oh.
their side received a ban. It came out of nowhere, but almost immediately everyone knew that something was wrong. It appeared as though members of the Alliance had all falsely reported this player at the same time, causing some kind of automated response and for him to receive a suspension the moment it looked like they were finally able to kill the boss. Soon after, a post went up on the Classic WoW subreddit, gaining a huge amount of interest for the Sulfurous drama. Not long after, Blizzard replied, saying, "After reviewing the accounts in question, we can confirm the actions did not happen as a result of abuse of the reporting system. While investigating the accounts involved, we did discover evidence of some players who were attempting to file false reports with bad intent and have actioned those accounts for abuse of game systems." Which to this day, I still don't understand what it's supposed to say. So they weren't abusing the report system, they were just filing false reports. I don't know, sounds like abusing the report system to me. Anyways, the prospective Scarab Lord was unbanned not long after, meaning they got to continue progressing the quest line. A shared Discord conversation between Horde Guild Amnesty and an ally from Grizzly said it all. The Horde will retaliate. I know how this ends.
Say goodnight to
You do
Lorena.
too. And the retaliation was swift. Soon after, the gong sounded in the desert.
Oh, good night, Loreno.
Sulfurous for the first time.
I'll probably be on my
After a
usual
10-hour
time
war,
tomorrow,
and
provided
more
I don't have to
importantly,
work
a
15
timer.
hours.
Anyone who had the scepter had to bang the gong too if they wanted their mount and later their title. However, some of the players on the Alliance were yet to turn in all 3 shards at Anachronos in Tanaris. This had to be done to actually get the scepter to complete the quest. And if you remember how this quest line started off, you did a reputation grind from hated to neutral, which meant for the vast majority of the server, this dragon is hostile. What can you do with hostile units? You can keep them in combat forever, so they cannot be interacted with. This was the Horde's revenge for the report ban. Some 1,000 Horde players flooded the zone of Tanaris, holding down the choke into the valley where Anachronos resided, and kept him in combat for 10 hours straight. Despite the Alliance numbering in the hundreds, they never broke through. And though the 10-hour war raged in Silithus on US realm Sulfurous, it was fought in Tanaris, and it was a victory for the Horde. And that is how the guild that contributed the most towards the world first war event missed out on many Scarab Lord mounts and titles. Then again, should the Horde and Alliance ever have worked together in the first place to farm fragments in Silithus? What about the players who hadn't done anything wrong and just needed to hand in during the 10-hour war? Did they deserve to lose their mounts too? You just don't get this in other games, do you? Each and every server will have their own story around the war efforts, their own drama, the betrayals, the politics. Classic was certainly rough around the edges, but did it ever create stories and characters? It's
Northern
reasons like this that
Pylon,
we can
huh?
look back and realize this game is nearly 20 years old, and people keep coming back to it. And that is the story of the opening of Encourage in Classic WoW. Let me know how things went down on your server, and if you like the video, drop a like. It helps out a bunch and it takes a moment. That's all from me though. As always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll
I'm not gonna like your video just because you asked me to. And I was liking it up until that point. I'm tired of listening to this fucking douchebag. Anyway.
There we go. Top
The world
10
of
myths
Warcraft
in
is
Warcraft.
nearly 15 years old, and over
I got
the
it,
years,
I got it.
many legends have been created.
Yep.
Some are true, and some are half true, and others downright ridiculous.
Yep.
It's a tale as old as time, going back to the days of the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, that one's
or
real.
Bigfoot. or
I know
happiness
him.
existing. You can save Eris in Final Fantasy VII. There's a nudity code for Tomb Raider. You
Yeah,
can
there
unlock
is.
Ermac in the first Mortal
called
Kombat
4chan.
game. All because the phrase Ermax, which truncates error macros, appears in the diagnostics menu of the arcade copy of the game. As you'd imagine, the World of Warcraft has had its fair share of myths created throughout the years.
Yep.
Most of these I'll be covering will be from Classic. Not really intentional, it's just
Bengal
that back then,
tiger.
with the game being new and everything, it was much easier to believe all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And also MMOs just being
I
new to
believed a lot of
everyone in
stupid
general,
shit
I
back
think,
then, too.
You're more likely to believe that there are these super hidden secrets to be discovered, since the genre as a whole is on such a massive scale. Today, it's easy to say that, oh, that's stupid. Who would believe that?
Yeah, it is easy
But
to say
back
that.
before everything was gone over 4,000 times with a fine-tooth comb, this
Mm-hmm.
stuff was actually believable.
Yeah.
But without any further delay, these are the top 10 myths of World of Warcraft.
I used to swim out.
Starting small and working our way up, number 10 on our list is that the Molten Core was made in 1 week.
Wait, I actually thought that was true.
Well, this is partly true. The
Wait,
environment
yeah, it
was
was.
created in 1 week by the great John Statz. From the World of Warcraft diary, he describes his 1 week escapade in making the iconic cavern.
Yeah, I thought that was true.
Did you know that there was originally a path from Golemag's room to Magmadar? It was only taken out after Jeff Kaplan deemed that it would make the raid too circular, preferring instead a more linear layout.
Wow.
So the environment was created in 1 week.
That could have been
which
the little
eventually
tunnel there.
turned into the raid. was
Holy
created
shit,
in
I
1
didn't know
week.
that.
Something I'm guilty of spreading myself.
So
this
Jeff
is
made the
partly me
raid take
correcting my
longer.
errors. In the
Okay.
following weeks, Jeff Kaplan did all of the spawning and creature placement.
Wait
Scott
a
Mercer
second.
desi-
That means that every single fucking time that I have to deal with those respawning lava elementals and the fucking flame walkers every week, that's because of Jeff. Every week, Jeff fucks me in the ass.
Signed all of the boss fights. Bob Fitch set up all of the loot. And Pat Nagel and Alex Afrasiabi handled the quests and attunement to the raid.
Wow.
All this doesn't make it any less impressive, though,
Yeah.
and the raid as a whole deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame,
Okay.
taking into account the new ground that it broke, in spite of the tight window
It's a good
in
time.
which it was created. For number 9, we have glaive weapon types pre-Legion. As you know, ever since the Legion expansion and the release of the Demon Hunter class, the glaive type weapon is now obtainable in-game. And before that, in the Burning Crusade, we had the Warglaives.
Yeah, you had the
of
Warglaive. That
Azeroth.
was it, though.
But even prior to that,
Well, there was an
many players
artifact
searched
weapon in the game.
endlessly for these fabled glaive weapons.
Yeah.
Why?
It just wasn't
Well, just look
wasn't
at it.
usable by players.
That's some ninja stuff right there. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
get
all.
any cooler than that. I'm gonna name my character some variation of Legolas or Sasuke and dual wield these puppies. Like I said, it started all the way back in the release of the game.
Yep.
There were a handful of NPCs who held these fabled weapons, typically night elves, such as the Darnassus guards or this boss found in Dire
This
Maul,
stupid piece
Priest
of
with
shit
Eldrin.
that dropped my leggings
I
on the
remember
first
that
pull.
people would farm him over and over in hopes of that ultra-rare glaive drop, but it was all for naught. It didn't help that there were indeed glaive weapons.
All right, here we go. Oh, that is spooky. That's real spooky.
It's that time of year. There's just something in the air. Something off.
Ooh.
The kids are trick-or-treating, people are going to costume parties, and you? Well, you're sitting in
at
front
home.
of your computer listening to me talk about World of Warcraft.
Because we're
Now,
losers.
that's scary.
Sure is.
Well, let's at least make the best of it.
Of course.
Never mind the fact that this stuff is all over the internet, and you've probably seen it 1,000 times before. But this is the top 10 spookiest, scariest spooks in World of Warcraft.
Okay. Dude, the music, man, this is intense.
Zombies. Not just any zombies, though. Can you guess this location? Some
Right
of you may have
behind
said
Moonbrook.
Westfall, and you'd be right. One of the more revolutionary things with the game at the time of its release were day and night cycles.
Amazing.
The World of Warcraft is, well, a world. As described in their 2001 preview of the game, they wanted to make it seem like a world, and one of their main ways of doing that was to change it as time goes on.
Yeah, that's
As
awesome.
the sun goes down and the skies darken, in the town of Moonbrook will stir something a bit more nefarious than some simple bandits. The vultures that normally reside in the graveyard outside of town take shelter as the undead rise from their graves and search for their next meal.
That's so fucking cool, dude.
This ghoulish transition isn't unique to
that is
Moonbrook,
cool.
however. Located in the Silverpine Forest, just outside of the Shadowfang Keep dungeon, is the Pyrewood Village. By day, a quiet town of villagers just going about their normal lives.
But at night?
However, as night turns,
Uh-oh. Every son.
that's right, furries.
What?
If you dare to move forward,
No,
let's
no.
move on to number 9.
No, that's terrifying. I'm done. I'm too afraid. I can't watch the rest of this. This is terrifying to me, man. Please, no furries. Oh, this is in Deadwind Pass.
At number 9, we have the Noosemen. You can
Could
find
you
these
imagine
guys
doing this
hanging
today?
around in various zones in the game. In the appropriately named Deadwood Pass, which eventually held the Karazhan raid, and also outside the Scarlet Crusade stronghold in the Tearsfall Glades.
Oh,
you
shit.
find the bodies of non-believers hanging in the trees as a word of warning for those who don't abide by the cult strictures. Rated T for teen, or rather, terrifying.
Terrifying. I feel like that should be higher up.
Will fail.
Ooh.
Your friends will abandon you.
Cthulhu
Death
is close.
is close.
No, that wasn't the voice in your head that you normally hear. That was the voice of the old god Cthulhu.
I hope he shows the
Housed
Ashbringer
in
ones
the
too.
ancient temple of Ankaraj lies the god of madness and chaos.
God, I love his
and
voice,
working
man.
your way through his minions, he'll periodically shit-talk you like a 9-year-old on Xbox Live.
Of course.
Spooking unsuspecting raiders.
You are weak. You are already dead.
That sounds like my
You
raid.
betray your friends.
That actually sounds exactly like my raid.
Boned your mom.
These whispers for a time were implemented into the popular add-on Deadly Boss Mods.
Yeah.
If you were attacked while AFK, it would play this line while you're alt-tabbed out in Wowhead or watching pornography.
die.
And this caused many players to question their sanity,
shit.
and countless threads were created searching for answers. It was eventually removed from the add-on since it caused such a stir.
That's cool.
The old god isn't the only one with the bants, though.
Yeah, this is
The
it right here.
Ashbringer,
This is the
Alexander
Ashbringer.
Smolgrain, also has a lot to say. His death was marred with betrayal and desecration,
Yeah.
having been stabbed in the back by his own son, with his own weapon even, the Ashbringer.
Fucking
This
ridiculous.
treachery cursed the blade, and Mograine himself was raised from the dead to serve and kill Fazad's undead army.
Sad.
Players can obtain the corrupted Ashbringer in the next Ramus raid,
Yep.
And while equipped, he would periodically
I'll be
give
getting this.
whispers from Ogrin's lost soul.
Excuse me?
Holy shit. That's so badass, man. That is so badass. Oh, these are like the fucking
It
knoll
puts the
camps, right?
lotion on its skin. It's kind of funny.
Look at
You
that.
murder some bunnies, make some clothing out of their hide, and no
Well,
one
you can
bats an
skill
eye.
you can skin
But
rabbits.
you make just one null tent made out of human skin, and everyone loses their crap.
Holy shit.
That's right. You know all of those null camps in the game? Look closely at their tents, and you'll uncover the shocking truth. You ever wonder what happens to the bodies of the low-level humans?
That's
who
true,
fell
there's no
victim to the
skin.
mighty Hogger?
Yeah, look at
Bring
that.
companions, and remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Holy shit. Oh, the Whispers of Tyrannus. Or Tyrannus, I don't know how to say his name. Oh,
What are you doing, my son?
succeeding.
Succeeding you, father.
There's still the blood on the ground in the Undercity, where like his throne room was. Damn, this video's hardcore.
Patricide, the killing of one's own father. Preceding the events of World of Warcraft, there's a prince by the name of Arthas Menethil, the son of
prince?
Tyrannus Menethil and heir to the throne.
Yep.
He was an ordained paladin in the Order of the Silver Hand.
Yeah, whatever
and fought
happened with
for
that?
justice and defended the weak. His story, however, was marred with heartbreak, madness, and betrayal.
Yep.
In his youth, he uncovered a plot by the Dreadlord Mal'Ganis to turn the citizens of his hometown, Stratholme, into undead through the consumption of poisoned foodstuffs. He rushed back to the kingdom to warn them, but it was too late, and the entire city had to be purged. The citizens turned as he warned, and he and his paladins had the grisly task of massacring them. He was driven mad by the ordeal, and in a quest for revenge against Mal'Ganis, he uncovered the runeblade Frostmourne, the weapon of the ruler of all undead, the Lich King. He wielded the cursed blade.
Can I just say that Arthas would have been the best king? He did what needed to be done. He did what he needed to do. Like, Uther and Jaina were too much pussies to understand that Arthas needed to kill those people so they wouldn't kill more people. He was the only person that could make a decision that only a king could make. And Uther and Jaina pussied out, and Arthas would have never had to take up Frostmourne because he would have had the power of his girlfriend and his mentor with him, and he would have never felt compelled to use the sword.
That's kind of true. He's kind of like Ozymandias.
How?
Well, he saved people by killing them.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You talking about Ozymandias like in the story, or Ozymandias in the Watchmen?
The Watchmen. Who watches the Watchers? Sometimes you gotta kill people to save people, you know? That's why you shoot criminals, to stop them from killing people.
Well, it's a quarantine. He had to quarantine them. And Arthas did the right thing. And his dad, I can guarantee if Arthas came back and told his dad would be like, yeah, I guess you got to do it, right? Nobody else understood him. Nobody else got it. Arthas was never the bad guy. Even whenever Arthas became the Lich King, he wasn't the bad guy because he held the Scourge back. Arthas only became the bad guy whenever Frostmourne poisoned his mind. So his mind was no longer his own. Whenever Frost...
You like smoking?
Huh?
Smoke.
Get up.
Well, got you that rocking chair yet. You can have an excuse. You want to just do that, Bill? That'd be like the easiest thing to do because every antique shop we go to, it's like what? Every fourth booth we pass, I say, "Oh wow, that'd be a great table. Oh wow, that'd be a great little end table to put in between some chairs and things."
Yeah, but that would mean that we have to go to shop.
Oh no.
Yeah, like super sharp right when you put your face into my neck.
What's this stuff? Come on, man.
Itchy scratchies. Scary stuff. All my junk food. Ah.
Frostmourne was controlling him, because that's why Mal'Ganis wanted him to pick up the sword. Arthas did nothing wrong. Period.
To aid him in his quest for revenge, and was able to slay the Dreadlord in one-on-one combat.
I can never make those jumps.
Victory, however, was hollow, as the last of his sanity slipped away, and the cursed sword took hold of him.
Yeah.
Under the influence of Frostmourne and the Lich King, he slayed his companions and returned to the kingdom. The crowd rejoiced its champion as he walked through the halls leading to the throne room,
Couldn't I tell
showering
he has
him
white
with
hair
rose
and a weird
petals
fucking
and
skull
ringing
sword?
the bells in celebration.
Not draw any like confusion?
The cheers of joy and admiration quickly turned to horror as he drove Frostmourne through his own father's heart and unleashed the undead upon his own people. They say the dead don't lie, and vestiges of the past can be found in-game. In the Undercity, if one turns up their ambience to the max and listens very carefully,
You can
in
hear
the
the
bell
voices.
tower, you can still hear the joyous ringing, marking the prince's return.
Yep. So badass.
In the hallway leading up to the throne room lay still the rose petals that once showered the prince.
Wait, I didn't know that part. Damn. What the fuck?
And in the throne room, you can hear the dialogue between Arthas and his father, moments before he ruthlessly murdered him.
God damn. Fuck, man. So serious. Wow. Okay.
The Elwyn Forest,
Yeah.
a place of tranquility, and caves that look like, well hey, they always said that Azeroth was a female titan. Be careful though, this one is infested with critters.
Oh wow, I never
There's
noticed
some
that.
really hard quests in there, so you better wear lots of protection.
Okay.
Anyways, the children of Goldshire.
What is this?
Wandering about the forest, you can find 6 children, and that's Aaron, Cameron, Lisa, Jose, John, and Dana.
Jose.
They seem innocent enough, but looking closely, you'll notice that they walk in the pattern of a pentagram. And, what's more, at 7 a.m. every single day, they'll make their way to the secluded house near Crystal Lake and begin their satanic ritual.
What the
If you
fuck?
turn your sound levels up, you'll hear spooky music, banshee screams, ghoul calls, all manner of demonic noises. Even Cthulhu joins in on the fun.
What?
You will die.
And, just as quick as they came, they disappear, begin the ritual again and again, every day at 7 a.m.
What the fuck? I didn't
But
even know
there
that.
lies more horror in the seemingly innocent zone. After a long day of questing,
damn.
adventurers can take refuge in the town's inn,
How nice.
refresh on food, relax by the cozy
How
fire.
nice.
However, for one server in particular, you'll find a completely different experience. In the deepest depths of debauchery lies the Moonguard Goldshire Inn. For those who enter, leave with trauma and
Oh
sticky
my
feet.
god.
What's going on over here?
Do you
Oh,
really want to know?
Good lord.
Oh my.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's just go over here. Truly, one of the most horrifying areas. in
This
the
one should
entire
be number
game.
1.
Nah, you already know what number 1's gonna be.
You might throw me a curveball. Nax Ramos.
The Naxxramas raid, home of the Lich Lord, Kel'Thuzad,
There he is.
and all manner of undead, necromancers, and
Get fucking
abominations.
raped.
Yes.
In the room at the far end of the raid, locked behind an iron gate, lies the most gruesome and grotesque being of them all.
Oh
waiting.
yeah.
Stitched together from the corpses of women and children lies a creature named Thaddeus, an amalgamation of flesh made to serve the Lich King in death.
Yep.
This malformed atrocity serves as the prison for the souls of the victims of the scourge, whom can be heard crying for a release into the afterlife.
There's cards.
You know those cries that you
got
hear throughout
Pokemon
the
cards
raid?
in his head? Wait, that's... Dude, that's fucking badass. Why don't they do scary shit like this anymore?
A little known, but dark truth is that they come from the lost souls trapped within Thaddeus.
Yeah.
These wails can be heard throughout the halls of the ziggurat to horrify invading adventurers.
Casuals couldn't
and
handle
serve
it?
as a
Yeah, it'd
warning
scare the
of a
casuals.
fate that they too may meet.
God damn. This is actually really cool.
Next, we have a room that's so dark and so messed up that it was never even meant to be seen by players. Hidden behind the unreleased Karazhan raid
Yep.
and the Deadwind Pass are the Karazhan crypts.
Yep.
These are locked behind an iron gate, barring players from entry, and only by purposefully dying and spirit resurrecting through the gate could you gain entry.
This is so cool.
Inside lays a huge labyrinth filled with tombs,
I went here for the first
bones,
time on stream. I
grave
never went here
sites,
back in the day.
and
Ever.
the deafening silence of the dead. A pile of bones marks the site of a cruel execution room. At the entrance of the crypt is a black hole whose bottom can't be seen by the naked eye, and those unlucky enough to fall down, however,
That's the
would
pile
find
of bones.
themselves in a room called the Pit of Criminals.
The Pit of Criminals.
Supposedly, the last guardian, Medivh, would use this well to execute lawbreakers, being forced to jump to their doom where their bodies were left to rot with the bones of those before them.
That's smart.
Nonetheless, this method of execution paled in comparison
This
to
is
the
it here.
room of upside-down sinners.
Yep. This is actually what it's called, too, in the game. Yeah.
Venturing further into the crypts, you'd happen upon a body of water. On the surface, the waters are calm and serene.
Of course.
However, in the depths,
Shit, man. I'm amazed they
the
even
room
put
of
this in the
upside-down
game. Man.
sinners is a second known execution chamber, purposed to end the lives of criminals, trespassers, or anyone deemed to be a sinner in Medivh's twisted madness.
Yeah, so imagine putting this in the
The
game.
bodies lay there still to this day, and the waters are forever calm and as silent as a grave.
I wonder if they'll ever make content out of that.
The only sound you hear are your own footsteps.
In a way, I kind of hope they
If you
don't.
turn up your ambience enough, you'll hear that of a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
It grows louder and louder, climaxing in a room called the Slough of Despair. Wait, D-I-S... Never mind. But venturing into the heart of the crypts, into the deepest pit, and listening closely. I have a small penis. Well, never mind that. Well, what could possibly top
The
that, you're
fuck?
wondering? What is the most petrifying, heinous,
Okay.
and terrifying thing in World of
What's number
Warcraft?
one? No, no, stop! Get it away! Stop! No! No!
Once
No!
upon a
No!
time, a long time ago, a game was released, an MMORPG based off the Warcraft series called World of Warcraft.
Of
You
course!
could pick 9 different
course.
classes, adventure with your friends,
Wow.
and explore a massive virtual
Hairstyle never
world.
made it in the game.
It took the world by storm.
Okay.
Players were sucked into their addiction and invested thousands and thousands
sure
of
did.
hours into this virtual
Jesus
world.
Christ.
Wow.
Meaningful and rewarding loot system,
There it
a
is.
thriving community,
I'm gonna do that.
a fun and chaotic PvP experience,
It sure
a
was.
set of classes that are all unique from each other, and a challenging but rewarding raiding scene. It
Man.
redefined the MMO genre and quickly earned the praise and adoration of players worldwide.
It sure did.
But as time moved on, players watched the game they loved
Stop,
and
stop,
adored
stop. I can't.
slowly being changed.
I
into
can't
take
something
this
else.
anymore.
Yeah, we can't. This is.
Dungeon
Oh.
Finder, Raid
Ah!
Finder, Heirloom,
No.
Level
No.
Boosts, a third furry race.
Ah!
Basic core functions to the MMO genre were deemed by a few to be too time-consuming or annoying, so slowly but surely, Blizzard pandered to this audience, and the game was
God.
changed into a slot machine
Oh,
and a local
heirlooms.
loot casino with aspects of mobile gaming and even a cash shop. The game today holds a meager amount of subscribers compared to its glory days, as players fled in horror of what it's become.
No, man. Okay.
That was awesome.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video.
God, I love this video.
Jesus.
What a great video. What a great video. I'm going to link it to you guys.
Okay, enough of that. Time for some Witcher 3 music. This is the only music I can play without a copyright. That's not gonna work. You motherfucker. Oh wait, you know what? This is pretty much a guaranteed crit. Boom. Oh, my guild's starting to get pretty big. Uh-oh. Oh, boy. Oh, it's gonna start proliferating now. Okay, enough of that. Oh, I have a Windows update. How nice.
Talk about those things in the podcast. I have had a busy week. Really, have had a busy month. I got to thinking about back in February. I think I preached in 4 or 5 churches in February. Conducted a couple of ordinations. Attended a revival meeting. Spent 4 days 5 days at a Bible conference. 4 days at a Bible conference. 2 days at another Bible conference. Preached in a revival meeting in another church in the same day. It was just one of those weeks where it seemed like I was gone more than I was home. And I like to be used. I want to enter heaven tired, not well rested. I believe there's a place for rest, and that preachers and Christians ought to enjoy rest. But I believe we also ought to be busy. And boy, I have been busy, been away from home. So this week I have been around the house, and I tried to catch up on some firewood. I like to have I don't do necessarily ricks or cords. We have a large barn, and I have a lean-to on the side of the barn where I store our wood. I like to have 6 pallets of wood stacked about head to shoulder high on me. So that's not too terribly tall, but I like to have about 6 pallets of wood stacked up, drying over the summer under a roof. That way, when next winter rolls around, the wood is well seasoned, it burns well, heats our home well. And so I've probably cut a couple ricks of wood Monday and Tuesday, got it split and stacked, and that's good exercise, and I enjoy doing it. So that's much needed stuff that needs to be done. If I don't get it done before it gets hot, I'll never get it done. And it's too wet to plow and break the garden, so that's what I've chosen to do for exercise. But what is a backwoods Baptist? Well, it's what I envision Baptists being back when Baptists were in the backwoods. When we left the cities and we went on westward expansion, everywhere the pioneers went, preachers went with them, sharing the gospel, planting churches, establishing churches and associations for the advancement of the gospel. And we rose to become the largest denomination in America. And I think that missionary zeal and that logic and that mindset of going and doing is what we need to get back to if we're going to see America recover and return to her glory, as well as the Baptist Church to return to her Bible basis and her evangelistic zeal. You too might be a backwoods Baptist if you've ever had a bow range set up inside your church. I know this from experience. From the back of the fellowship hall to the front doors of the building by the pastor's office is exactly 30 yards. You can shoot 30 yards in the air condition. You want to shoot further than that, you've got to prop 2 doors open, get down on one knee, and get in the parking lot. Not that I've done that, but that's what you would have to do. Anyways, the reason this topic came about was we were sitting around a bunch of preachers in a meeting last week. The preaching service was in the morning and in the evening. With a lot of these conferences, you'll have a lunch and then you'll be off in the afternoon. And some of the older preachers usually use that time to take a nap. Us younger preachers use that time to stir an argument or tell stories or whatever. We like to sit around and drink coffee and discuss the issues of the day. And so we were discussing preaching attire. What should we wear when we preach? And this was a really good discussion. And I've got friends on just about every aspect of this discussion, and I love them all. And I'm not going to say anyone is dead wrong. I'm just going to say I disagree, just like they would disagree with me. But when we talk about preaching attire, I want to go beyond that. If I was just talking about preaching attire, preachers would be the only ones that listen. I want to talk about church attire. What should we wear to church? Should that look any different than what we wear to work? And well, I would say it depends on where you work. I wouldn't wear my church clothes where my son works at the water department, and I wouldn't wear his water department clothes to church. Sometimes he doesn't work when the water comes in.
Some
Sometimes he
shitty
works when the
drops
water
right
goes
there.
out. Sometimes mechanics wear uniforms that suit the needs of their job. I've even heard preachers advocate that the uniform of a pastor is a suit and tie. I was talking to Wes Brown today before I went on the podcast, and I told him that I would be discussing church dress. So what Wes said, and he attributed this quote to R.C. Sproul, and I may get it all wrong, but it sums up kind of what I was thinking. You may not have to get dressed up, but you do need to get dressed to go to church. And I think that's probably the position that I would advocate. So what I've done is I have categorized 4 viewpoints for church dress code. And that is
He's just resisting everything, and then he cancels my channel. It's actually kind of annoying.
Have a code. It may be an unwritten code, but I know churches that have it written down. This is what you will wear. And women will wear dresses to church. You not even gaucho pants, not even the big baggy floppy pants that look like a dress. You'd have a hard time figuring out that's not good enough. It's got to be a dress. I know churches that have that in their constitution. And the men will wear certain clothes. I mean, this is like literally one chin strap beard removed from the Amish. Men will wear a suit jacket and a tie. And these churches have gone so far, it's to have extra ties available, and they have dresses available. If you show up without the proper dress code, you will be asked to put a dress on or asked to put a tie on. Some churches are big on head coverings. If your wife comes in without a head covering on, they'll promptly bring her one. And so the dress code idea, you're seeing it less.
I'm never
and less
finding these
in the
guys
church,
again. They're
but you
fucking
still
annoying.
see it a lot
And how
in
much
the
XP do I get?
In other words, there's a dress code for the preacher that may not apply to the rest of the church. And I've experienced this a lot.
682. Well, I guess that's
and the
not
dress
bad.
code has always been a suit and a tie. You must wear a suit and tie if you're going to preach. And if you're going to get
How much XP do I get from these guys?
Tony Hudson would say, he's the old IFB preacher. He'd say, I wear a white shirt because I'm called to preach. And he says a white shirt's the only thing a preacher should wear. Now, obviously, you can go to an extreme, but I've been in a number of churches where you weren't allowed to get in the pulpit if you didn't have a tie on. And I recall preaching one time in Mississippi, and that's really a lot of IFB churches, independent fundamental Baptist churches. They would have this viewpoint. In the East, this is really popular. In the Southeast, this would be a big thing.
Well,
I remember preaching one
I'm
time
gonna
in
kill this
Mississippi.
one too.
This
Fuck.
was a small
Hold
church,
on, let me drink.
60, 70 people. When I stepped up into the pulpit, I began to introduce myself, and I looked around the church as I was
Shit,
talking.
I'm gonna
I was
grind
the only
these.
man in the church without a tie on. I'm talking about, it was like every male over 8 days had a tie on. The little kids.
It took me just as long to kill one of those.
And so I quickly realized, man, I'm the only man in here without a tie on. So I explained, hey, look, I don't wear a tie because it was causing me voice trouble. And I quit wearing my tie and I quit having voice trouble. The pastor said, boy, I'm really glad you explained why you didn't have a tie on. I was nervous when I saw you without a tie. I was wondering if our people would even listen. One time in Georgia, I was in a meeting, and the pastor asked me, he's like, look, I know you don't wear a tie, but out here, it would really be good if you wore a tie. So I wore a tie. And when I walked up into the pulpit, I asked for everybody's attention. They were all looking at me. I said, does everyone see my tie? Be okay if I take it off? Oh, man, they began to shout, oh, take it off, preach. I wasn't taking it off to get loud or run around the building, although the guy after me, he took his jacket off, his tie off. He was nearly naked by IFB standards, but he done it while preaching, so it was acceptable. The point is, the dress code idea is just not, it's not biblically defensible. To say that the priest wear a garment, well, we're all priests. We are a kingdom of priests. We're in a royal priesthood. And we're all clothed in the righteousness of Christ. And to say that the guy that's preaching has to wear a different dress than the people that are listening is just ludicrous. To say that women cannot wear something pertaining to man and they have to wear a dress instead of pants when everybody back then wore dresses, I think they're talking about a beard. The bearded woman in the fair. And boy, they're not just in the fair these days. You'll run into bearded women nearly everywhere. The idea was that men look like men and women look like women. It wasn't a dress code. And so I tell people, you know, they'll say, hey, I'd like for you to come preach. Oh, by the way, you need to wear a tie. And I just simply say, man, I'm not the guy to come preach to your church. And they'll say, well, wait a minute now. All I'm asking you to do is put a tie on. I understand that. But for me to put a tie on, that's something I never wear. That's something I never have a tie on. It's not a part of my normal dress. It would be odd. If someone saw me in a tie, they would be like, what's the matter with you? Are you okay? Have you been hypnotized? This idea that I would put on something I normally wouldn't wear, it'd be like asking a hipster, say, hey, look, I want you to wear Wranglers, boot cut, and some cowboy boots to preach. And so I don't wear that. I wear skinny jeans and loafers. It would be like saying, I want to go see ZZ Top, but I don't want the beards. Well, we know that ZZ Top has the big long beards. It would be odd to see them otherwise. It would be odd for me to preach in some kind of weird garment. It'd be like playing dress up. It wouldn't make any sense. So I'm not offended if someone wants me to wear a tie. I just politely bow out and say, look, I don't wear
I'm
a
not fighting it.
uniform when I preach. It'd be just as odd for me to ask you to wear a gown.
Too much bullshit.
Collar.
I'll fight this one though.
When we're asking someone to
I
wear
am
a
out of health
specific
pots,
article
so
of clothing, I think that's too far. And if someone honestly says, hey, I don't want to do that, we honor that. Okay, hey, great. You're right. I don't want a liberal like you preaching in my pulpit. I'm going to go get a real preacher, a real man of God with a tie and a white shirt, a black suit. So we've got the dress code, number one. Let's go to the opposite of that. Let's go to the comfortable, casual, cool, dare I say carnal. Yes, there is another group of Christians who want to wear the latest fashions. They want to wear the whatever's most comfortable, whatever's most casual. They'll show up for church in a pair of pajama pants, an old stretched out nightshirt. They'll wear house shoes. I see people coming into church all the time in some of the places I go where they're wearing house shoes and sweatpants. And I'm like, man, we're in church. Come on. Somewhere between the white shirt and the tie and you just crawled out of bed. Somewhere in here's got to be the middle ground. So it's like a
Hold on a second. Let me watch this video.
What's up, Supernatural Life family? I'm a presence of God, bringing a bunch of crazy stuff into it or whatever, or shouting at this thing, which, man, props to you, Becky, for doing that. God bless you. And, yeah, just react to it. So let's go ahead and let's see what was taking place. We are going to, give me 1 second, guys. We're gonna jump on this thing. It's gonna be good. All right, here we go. Y'all are going to see the woman get, you see the woman, she's about right here. She's wiggling, and they're carrying her out. Because I don't know if they're really aware of what's going on. And this is,
I don't understand these people. I don't understand a lot of people, but especially those people. I don't understand them. I don't want to either. But, you know, I don't understand the people that don't use their fucking third signal either, so, I mean, this is nothing new to me. In my book, the people that pretend to be possessed by a demon and the people that don't use their turn signals are one and the same. Negative attention seekers. Did I get him? I think I got him. My Fire Blast is like my only good spell against this motherfucker. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna fight this ooze here. Just to see what he does.
On both sides of a good road. But with the carnal crowd, it's whatever's not just comfortable and casual, but whatever's cool and trendy. So if short shorts are trendy, that's what they're going to wear to church. If a certain kind of shirt is trendy, that's what they're going to wear. I've seen preachers preach in clothing that I would wear to the gym to work out in. I've seen preachers preach in clothes that, you know, really don't look anything like what you would wear to work unless you worked in a gym or unless you worked on the beach. Or so when I say comfortable and casual, I'm not necessarily talking about business casual here. I'm talking about whatever you feel like wearing. I see preachers preaching in cutoffs, sandals, and a Hawaiian shirt. And it's not because they're preaching on the beach or something. It's just that's what they want to wear. And that they think, well, whatever the lowest common denominator is between me and the congregation, that's what I'm wearing. I don't think that's right either. I think just as the dress code is beyond the scope of what Scripture requires, I believe the cool, comfortable, casual, carnal dress is the opposite end of the spectrum. So I think you ought to be covered up. I think you shouldn't be wearing skimpy clothing. I think you should wear something comfortable, especially if you're going to listen to a guy preach for an hour. And hour-long sermon is not unreasonable. If you're going to sit and listen to a guy preach for an hour, you know, the top button on your shirt needs to be able to button easily if you're going to wear a tie. Or you can just take your tie off and get comfortable. But somewhere between pajamas and shorts and a tank top and a suit and tie should be there. So we got the cool, comfortable, casual, carnal. We've got the dress code.
I don't want to
Number
fight
3,
those.
the flamboyant.
Fuck them.
So I have to wear a suit and tie. Great. I'm going to go get a flaming red suit. And I'm going to get a tie with orange flames on it. And I'm going to get red and white shoes. And you're going to spot me a mile away. I'm going to look like a manager for somebody on the WWE wrestling team. And so we've got this flamboyant preacher who's wearing these wild, bright suits and bright ties. And maybe it's not wild. Maybe it's just expensive. Maybe you're in a church where the median income of an entire family is $50,000 a year, and you're wearing a $4,000 or $5,000 silk suit. Maybe your suit costs more than most of the cars in the parking lot of your church. I would say that's flamboyant and excessive. I would say that you probably ought to wear something a little less than that. Paul speaks of this to the church at Corinth, where women were weaving jewels and gold into their hair as a form of decoration and a show of their wealth. And it could be distracting when you're sitting in church and you're looking at your pastor and he's wearing a suit that's more than you made this month. And that's just one of the many that he has. Or, you know, you can look at this a number of different ways. I'm just throwing out illustrations. Ladies, I'm including you too. Just as you guys can come in too casual, a little too comfortable at times, you can come in too flamboyant. If you've got a hat on so big that 4 rows behind you can't see the preacher, that's too flamboyant. You're drawing attention to yourself. That's the exact opposite of what we're desiring to do. We want to glorify God, not self. So I knew preachers that would have like wild hair, and you could spot them a mile away. And they would do that to draw attention to themselves. Clothes that draw attention to yourself. All of these things in the flamboyant category, I would say the Bible clearly says is off limits. Now, look, if you want to go to the beach and have some red, white, and blue pants that nobody wants a roundhouse kick to, if you want to go and wear something like Uncle Rico, if you want to go and look like Rex Kwon Do, whatever you want to do at the beach or on vacation, that's between you and whoever you're accountable to. But church is not the place for flamboyant. It's not the place for wild hair and big hats and gigantic, wild, crazy suits and boots where the toes are like a foot long and curve up to a point. It's not the place for that. It's where we go to glorify God. Okay, so I got the dress code. I got the cool, comfortable, casual, carnal. I got the flamboyant, whether it's the ladies.
It has to be down here.
Crazy dress, or the guys with a big crazy suit, some outlandish hair, some wild shoes. What's number 4, preacher? You said you had 4 of these. Number 4 is what I call nice, clean, and modest. Nice, clean, and modest. And here's why I use those 3 words. Number 1, nice. What you wear to church on Sunday should be some of your nicest clothing. Now, when I say nicest clothing,
sure.
If you are a guy that wears a suit every day, maybe that's what you should wear to church. You should, if you wear a polo shirt to work every day, maybe you should wear your nicest polo shirt to work. I used to work for a guy back in the 90s who wore overalls every day. I went to church with him. You know what he wore to church on Sunday? His nicest pair of overalls. They were dark blue and stiff, and you couldn't hardly walk in them, but after he'd get a few Sundays in them, those would become work overalls, and he'd get another new pair, and that'd be church overalls. Nice. We shouldn't dress down and wear our worst clothing. We should go through our closet and pick out the nicest clothes we have and wear those. Now, nice and clean. You know, I don't wear dirty clothes to church. I don't dig through the laundry basket and find something off the bottom end and pull it out all wrinkled up, stained up, and wear it. Now, look, if that's the nicest thing I have, that's what I'm wearing. But if I know that today is Saturday and tomorrow's the Lord's Day and I'm going to go worship with the saints in the Lord's house, I'm going to do a load of laundry on Saturday. So I have nice, clean clothes to wear. I don't show up at church in my camouflage hunting pants. I don't show up in the shirt that I cut all the firewood in the other day. That shirt's got holes in it. And it's stained with chainsaw grease. And it's not my nicest clothes. Now, I'm a long ways from the suit and tie. I'm definitely not flamboyant. And I don't think you would say that I'm overly casual and comfortable. But I'm wearing my nicest clothes, and they're clean. Number 3, modest. This right here will keep us from causing problems. Modest means I'm covered. Now, look, I know that if I show a little skin on a short, fat guy, no women are going to be like, "Ooh, look at him." Look, but it's gross. You don't want to see a fat dude with his shirt pulled up. You don't want to see a plumber bent over. You need to be covered. Ladies, you also need to be covered. You may be attractive. You may look nice, but we're not going to church to admire your beauty. We're going to church to admire the Son of God who died for us and be reminded of the great sacrifice he made for us. So with that being said, modest means that we're covered up. We're not flamboyant. We're not showing skin. A lot of guys now, and a lot of shirts are just made this way. They're tied in the arms. They're tied in the stomach. They want to accentuate your shoulders. They want you to have this manly look to them. We don't need skinny jeans. We don't need skin-tight jeans on men. We don't need skin-tight jeans on women. We don't need to see your form. We don't need to see your arms. We don't need to see your legs. If you show up in nice, clean, modest clothing, what would happen? Well, number 1, there's no sin in nice, clean, modest clothing. Nice, clean, modest clothing will not be a sin for you to wear, and it will not be a sin for anyone else to look at. There's no shame in nice, clean, modest clothing. Even if you're the preacher, if this is a nice shirt, I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt, but if I'm wearing my nicest shirt and my nicest pants, and I've cleaned them and they fit me well and my body's fully covered, there's no shame in that. I can walk in any pulpit that I'm allowed to be in front of God and have no shame before God because I haven't broken any of his laws. There's no sin. There's no shame. There's no standard. There's no standard. The New Testament gives us no standard beyond modesty. So if I go in there with this on, the world may say, that guy, he's not wearing them. Them clothes are from last year. That's last season's fashion. I don't care about the world standard. The legalistic preachers over here going, wow, he don't even have a tie on. He may not even be saved. I'm not worried about the standard of the legalist preacher that's got some standard, some little garment that I need to put on. If I go in church or even in a pulpit to preach, and I'm wearing nice, clean, modest clothing, this suits every culture. Get it? Suits every culture. Yeah. I ain't got a lot of them, but when I get one, I throw it out there a couple times. This suits every culture. You see, the problem with the tie model is nobody in the jungles of the Amazon wants to wear a tie and a long sleeve shirt and a suit jacket when it's 98 degrees and 100% humidity, a rainy season. Nobody in the deserts of the Sahara want to put a tie around their neck and cinch that up. So regardless of the culture, if we just tell them,
There
put
it
your nicest
is.
clothes on, be clean and modest, then we've told that, hey, they've demonstrated, look, I knew I was coming to church. This is the nicest thing I have. This shirt has less holes than any other shirt I have. Okay. I washed it. I didn't run a marathon in this yesterday and then wear it to church so y'all smelling me 3 rows back. I'm clean. And this shirt covers me as good as any clothing that I have. All right, perfect. You see, that works in every culture. Whether we're missionaries somewhere, whether we're in America, whether we're in Europe, whether we're in a nice, advanced, civilized society, or we're working with some indigenous tribe in some remote part of the world. Nice, clean, and modest fits. It fits every culture. It fits every climate.
I can't carry anymore.
Think about that. Like I said, in the Sahara, in the jungle, there's places where it's hot. There's places where it's cold. There's places where you preach indoors, places where you preach outdoors. If you're nice, clean, and modest, it fits. And it avoids all of the baggage of a dress code. If you will set as your standard, nice, clean, modest, whether to preach or whether to attend service, you don't have to conform yourself to somebody's dress code. You don't have to worry about being considered carnal or casual or comfortable because you've got the modest aspect and you're wearing your nicest stuff. You don't have to worry about being flamboyant because you're not setting yourself up to be noticed. All of this works best because it's nice, clean, and modest. And that's my opinion. In my opinion, I believe to be built off the sound teaching of Scripture. I cannot see the Apostle Paul walking from town to town with a coat hanger over his shoulder and a string of suits on it. I don't see the Apostle Paul traveling with some priestly garment that he would put on when he arrived to preach. If he did, he sure didn't include it in any of his letters. Paul told us to live and dress modestly. He learned to get by with little and to get by with much. That tells me that Paul didn't have the nicest, newest, best, greatest suit. He wore what the Lord provided. He was not flamboyant. Anybody that's had their clothes ripped off of them while they were stoned, whipped, beaten with rods, cast into prison, I can assure you, Paul's clothing was probably not the nicest, newest, latest, greatest, but it was the nicest he had. He maintained it as best he could, and it served its purpose in modestly covering him. That's what the Bible portrays. That's what we should strive for. Now, look, if your church says women need to wear a dress, churches are allowed to make their own rules. I'm a Baptist. I believe in the independent, autonomous church. Each church can make their own rules. If your church says our pastors wear a suit and tie, and that's where the Lord's called you to pastor, you need to wear a suit and tie until you can change the minds and rules of your church. If you're 75 miles from the nearest good church and this is the best church there and they say you have to wear a suit jacket, put your suit jacket on and go along with it. But if you're in a position to make the decisions, if you're in a position to set the standard, if you're in a position where you can wear what you want, go for nice, clean, and modest. And look, don't mandate that everybody else do that. I'm not saying you can't have a dress code. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm saying don't be flamboyant, but I'm not saying that you have to wear this or that. I host a conference every year. We have about 50 preachers there every year. I don't tell any of them what to wear. The preachers that preach in our conference, they will say, what should I wear? Whatever you want. Just be covered up. Well, do I need to wear a tie? Only if you want to wear one. Well, I just don't feel comfortable unless I wear a tie. Okay, wear one. Well, what do you want me to do? I want you to do whatever your conscience dictates. But in the context of my podcast, I want to explain to you the way my conscience works. My conscience tells me to dress nice, clean, and modest.
Did you
So
want me
what
to
do I
chop up
wear when I
eggs?
preach?
Put it on there? Or
If
heat
it's
it
a
up
church
still,
that
or did
knows
you
me
want
well
to
and I'm
leave it cold?
comfortable, I usually wear jeans,
Leave what
boots
cold?
or dress
Okay.
shoes, and a button-up shirt. If it's a church that I
Don't put
don't
any
know
egg on
well,
it.
maybe I've never been to before,
Unless you
maybe I
want
don't
it.
know what their expectations are. If I'm preaching, I wear boots, jeans, a button-up shirt, and a jacket, sport coat. That's about as dressy as I get. And I only do that because I know people have standards that maybe I don't have. So I wear the jacket to put their mind at ease. But I always go with the best clothes that I have, clean, and nobody can say I'm showing skin or dressing immodestly or dressing down. I always look presentable. And I try to do that. Why? Because I'm gathering with the saints to worship the Lord Jesus Christ. And I want to make an effort. I shine my boots occasionally. I buy new clothes when I get holes in the old ones. You know, I try to look presentable, but I avoid wearing some kind of religious uniform. The reason being, if we set these standards so high, you have to look a certain way to come to our church. And we wonder why nobody else wants to come to our church. It's because we've made it unattainable. Our church ought to be open to the world. They ought to come in and the best they can. And look, maybe they just need instruction. Maybe they just need to be taught. But friend, if we don't have clear biblical instruction to give them for why they may be dressed wrong or why they may need to change the way they dress, then all we're giving them is some man-made standard. If a guy's nice, clean, and modest, he doesn't need any more teaching about dress. He needs to move on to the bigger things of the Christian life. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the matter. I pray that the podcast has been a blessing. A lot of junk on so.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang
Of our lives. I remember when
Fuck
people
you.
would ask you, are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Now it's just, what social media are you on?
I don't think those things would do that much damage to me that quick,
And
but
so
whatever.
just about everyone that is able to turn a computer on or has a smartphone has some social media platform in which they are a part of. And by social media, I mean Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, those kind of things. I might have left some out. Some of the more, what do they call them? Patriot friendly. Some of the new ones like Rumble and Square. Was it Squarespace? Not Squarespace makes websites. MySpace, that's an old one. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. Social media. What we're going to do today is apply a heaping helping of Southern fried common sense with an open Bible to social media, because that's what backwoods Baptists would traditionally do to the issues of the time. And if you're wondering what a backwoods Baptist is, well, it's the kind of Baptist that spread across America, planting churches, holding revivals, sharing the gospel. They had a zeal for evangelism. They were more practical than they were ultra educated. They were not academics, even though they weren't fools. They spent their time really just working and laboring to teach people the word of God and express their need to repent and believe the gospel as found in scripture. You too might be a backwoods Baptist if in your church on the coat rack, Aunt Mary's doing out of state. I can keep up with Uncle Tom and my cousin Laura, you know, the extended family that you don't see, but maybe every 2 or 3 years at a reunion or something. I can find out when the babies are born and how the job is going and who graduated college on social media. And then also, I have a number of distant friends. I'm talking about people that I was in the military with 30 years ago. I'm friends with them, and I only know them now or interact with them now through social media. To completely get off social media would mean I would lose contact with distant friends, preachers in other states, churches that I've worked with in other states. A lot of times I'll go somewhere and preach, and somebody from the church will find me on Facebook. And next thing you know, I've got a cluster of friends in this part of Texas or this part of Oklahoma or, this part of Missouri or wherever it is that I've preached at. And so I keep up with those churches and those distant friends through social media. So there are good aspects of it. And I'm not saying social media is of the devil. It's really in how you use it. But we've also got to be realistic. Along with news and family and friends, there's a lot of junk on social media. There's a lot of questionable content. And I don't mean fake news. I don't mean independent fact checkers that are not independent and don't know the facts. I'm talking about you're going to find pictures that are not wholesome. And I'm not talking about porn. You can put stuff on your computer to limit what comes through, but you're going to see things that basically society is okay with, but you as a Christian may not be okay with. And so you're going to find questionable content. You're going to see jokes. You're going to see memes. You're going to see things that maybe wouldn't be wholesome. And what's going to happen is they're not really that bad. They're just what we would say a little off color, maybe just a little bit risque. But what's going to happen is you're going to get bombarded with them over and over and over. You're going to see these posts that will soften your view. In other words, you may have the opinion
I'm trying to fucking res. I had to walk literally from here to there.
This is wrong, but over time you'll see
not fun.
Everybody else doesn't think it's wrong. I remember as a kid, this happened to me. In my family, it was okay to say butt with two T's. I fell and hurt my butt.
Get to wherever you
I was
need
at
to
a
get
friend's
to.
house. That was
I'm gonna go turn in these 3 quests that I just finished.
So when I used it, his mother dropped a spoon in the cake batter. He spun around looking at me like you're probably fixing to get a whipping, and I didn't know I'd done anything wrong.
I'm gonna shoot the crits at him.
In certain societies, you're going to find other things are acceptable there. And if we look at the American culture, there's a lot of
there's
things
a crit.
acceptable in American culture.
Want another one?
Christians are becoming more and more
How about that one?
okay with it.
Yep. How about that one?
Are
Nope,
becoming
you're
more
dead.
and more common in society, and Christians are going to have to encounter more and more of that because they're on a social setting where they're getting bombarded with these things. So with the news and the family and the distant friends and all of this, we've also got junk and questionable content. But really, that's not the problem if you limit how much time you're on there. See, the problem with social media is it's a big waste of time. You can spend hours a day on social media and not realize it. You see, I've got my phone laying here. And you may say, well, I don't spend hours on social media. But if you're in the doctor's office like I was a couple weeks ago, everybody in there is doing this right here, scrolling. I looked around the room. One old lady was reading a book. All the other old people, all the young people, all were sitting here.
Oh, I'm not fighting that guy.
Just scrolling.
You said it's not done yet.
Anything else? I was just waiting.
I said there was like 30 seconds left on the microwave.
And you're over there making the bed.
Waiting for you.
And they're all sitting there scrolling. You could be talking to your family. You see, if you add up all those just a couple minutes, well, I'm gonna check my notifications, and you do that.
Let me get to where I turn these in.
And you respond to a message.
It'll only take a second.
Like a picture, and you just
so,
do that.
see you in about 20 minutes.
An hour. In an hour. At the end of the day, that is an hour.
Really need new spells. Like, this is just fucking stupid.
This thing in your hand all day, and there again. It's not like it's all
I just need to get from here to here.
Such a time waster to us.
Yeah.
So it'll be about 20-25 minutes. I'm gonna go get my dinner.
Social media is designed to make you social.
I'll be out there in just a moment.
On to social media, the first thing you'll see at the top
Why do
of
they
the
keep fucking resisting my fire blast? Every single time I fucking cast it, they resist it.
About what's happening. Whatever it is, they're encouraging you to give your opinion. They're asking for your opinion. They want you to post this. And you remember when Facebook was new and it was basically just a bunch of old people taking pictures of what they had for lunch? I don't know if I've just filtered these people out or they just don't do it as much, but I mean, I can remember just constantly seeing pictures of people's lunch, supper, and breakfast. I'm like, man, that seems like that's all there is on here. What made us think that we needed to share our biscuits and gravy with the world? What was it that said, wait a minute, before I take a bite out of this sandwich, I need to take a picture of it because everybody needs to know what a bologna sandwich looks like. We know what a bologna sandwich looks like, and we don't care that you ate one. But because of social media, you've been conditioned to think that everybody on your friend list wants to see this. And so there are a lot of people, and I'm not judging anybody, I'm just stating facts. There are a lot of people that make multiple posts every day. They comment on multiple topics all day long. They're spending hours upon hours each day, each week, just giving us their opinion on various things. And social media knows how to draw this out of you because they reward you for giving a popular opinion. They chastise you for giving an unpopular opinion. When I first got on TikTok, I had been goose hunting that day, and I took a picture of a goose and was holding it up, and I thought, this will get a lot of views because I killed this great big Canada goose, and I shared it, and I waited for the the comments and the likes and everything to roll in. They never happened. I pulled out my phone. I thought, did I not upload it? I checked. I did upload it, but I violated the community guidelines. I showed a dead animal. And I was like, oh, I can't show a dead animal unless he's already cut into steaks. Then we can show all kinds of pictures of him. So that post that was not acceptable in the social platform was kicked out. But if you do post a popular post and it gets likes, they'll spread that more. It'll become what we call viral. It'll spread like wildfire. And this reward or lack of reward is very addictive. So what happens is we feel like, man, I need to show this. Everybody will like this. I'll get lots of likes. I'll get lots of attention. And our thirst for being accepted, which is a natural a reaction, our thirst for getting attention. I know people who will say, oh, I don't want any attention. I'm an introvert. And you look at their Facebook page and it's like, I'm like, no, you're not an introvert. You just don't like being in real society. You like being in the social society that only works through a computer screen or a smartphone. So this idea of instant response, this idea that we need your opinion leads to the idea of I need an instant response every day. They're asking me, what do you want? What do you want to talk about today? You remember the little cartoon with Champ and Chump? I think is what it was, Champ and Chump. It was like a great big bulldog, and his name was Champ. And then there was this little bitty dog running beside him. What are we going to do today, Champ? What are we going to do today, Champ? We're going to chase a cat today, Champ? And he was just constantly asking. Well, that's what social media does to us. It asks us over and over and over, what are you doing? What are you doing? Did you vote? Have you been vaccinated? Are you registered to vote? It asks you all these questions, and it wants you to share it. It'll give you pre-written post that all you simply need to do is hit a button, and it registers your response. It gives us polls where we can vote and give our opinion on things. This idea of instant response where we feel like we have to know the answer. We have to get the answer. We have to get the news right now. You remember when the news used to just come on at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock or 6 o'clock? And yeah, I think it was 6 and 10. And that was it. And if you'd missed it, you missed it. You had to get the paper and it came out once a day. Well, man, we're in a 24-hour news cycle. What happens if there's no news? What happens if nothing exciting happens? News companies generate excitement. Talk show hosts generate excitement. Because if there's no excitement and there's no controversy, you're not tuning into these talk shows, listening to them talk politics. There's nothing happening in politics. Same goes for social media. We have to find out what's going on. The desire for instant response means that we have lost our patience. I can remember before cell phones going fishing in the morning And nobody would even know I died until about 10 o'clock that night when everybody was going to bed, and he never came home. Now, if they send a text and I don't respond in 5 minutes, they're practically on the phone with the sheriff's office getting the manhunting dogs out. Well, we texted you and you didn't answer. The last few weeks, I've been privileged to go out of town into area of Arkansas and an area of Virginia where my cell coverage was basically non-existent. And man, did I ever love that time together. I mean, I took a book and I read over half of it. It was a fascinating book, and I had all kinds of time to read it because when I would sit down to eat, I wouldn't pull my phone out while I ate and scan through useless information. Instead, I would get a book out and would actually lay it there, and I laid a kitchen knife across the paper so they would stay flat, and I would eat and read a book. That's what our forefathers did. That's what the backwoods Baptists used to do. And I think we've lost our ability to do that because we're so connected to media that we have to constantly be fed and feed into the media. And so we have this idea that we need to have an opinion on everything. We've got to have an opinion on literally everything. We can't just say, it doesn't matter to me. It's like, what do you think? And then when something comes out, we go look to our sources. Well, what does Sean Hannity think? What does Kurt Colbert or whatever his name is? What does he think? What does this celebrity think? What does this athlete think?
I'm getting off.
What is this guy? And so all these people, we want to know their thoughts.
Probably for the night.